What's that? You're going to read it? Thank you. Welcome to the August 22nd City Council meeting. Please stand and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call of the members. Councillor Cogliandro.
Here.
Here. Councillor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councillor McKenna. Here. Councillor Morbido.
Here.
Here. Councillor Novoselsky.
Here.
Here. Councillor Powers.
Here.
Here. Councillor Rizzo. Here. Councillor Rotundo is absent. Councillor Sereno.
Here.
Here. Councillor Silvestri.
Here.
Here. And Council President Visconti.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
Go ahead. We can
We're just going to go over first the open meeting law rules. Video recording and public participation rules. Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 20F and 20G. Section F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium, subject to reasonable requirements of the chair as to the number, placement, and operation of equipment used so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of other recordings. Video recording rules. 1. If anyone wishes to record today's meeting, please approach the podium and provide your name and address for the record. 2. Indicate the type of recording device you will be using. 3. Reasonable requirements. If you do not notify the chair that you are recording, then you shall not record the meeting. 2. Do not move around the council chambers while recording, as this is a direct disruption of the city council proceedings. 3. Video recording shall not occur at the podium, as this is a direct disruption of city council proceedings. 4. You shall only operate your recording device in a manner so as not to interfere with the city council proceedings, as this is a disruption of city council proceedings. 4. This notification shall serve as a clear warning. No other warnings will be issued. If the video recording rules listed above are not complied with, 1. If anyone does not comply with the rules above and refuses to leave at the request of the City Council President, then a police officer will be authorized to remove disruptive individuals from the council chambers. Section 20G. No person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If, after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a police officer to remove the person from the meeting. Public participation rules. Number 1, to address the City Council President, you will need to provide your name and address for the record. 1, permission to speak will not be granted if you do not provide your name and address. 2, speaking without permission of the City Council President is a disruption of City Council proceedings. 2, conduct of the audience. All persons shall remain silent. 1, refusal or inability to stay and remain silent during the meeting is a disruption of the City Council proceedings. 3, this notification shall serve as a clear warning. No other warnings will be issued. If the public participation rules listed above are not complied with, you will be asked to leave at the direction of the City Council President. If you do not leave, then a police officer will be authorized to remove the disruptive individuals from the council chambers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege. I'd like to start off by welcoming back Councilor Powers to the council. I'm sure you will continue to work hard for your residents in Ward 5. So welcome back to the council.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank all of my colleagues up here who have been loyal to me, with me in different campaigns for their support, and I am so glad to be back here. I also want to thank publicly the voters of Ward 5, my constituency, for always being there 100% and supporting me and working with me to make Ward 5 a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. On a more somber note, a couple of weeks ago, a former member of the Revere School Committee, Ann Raponi, passed away unexpectedly. And she served 4 terms as a member of the school committee from 2002 to 2009, as well as currently serving as a member of the Conservation Commission. Even after leaving public office, she was very active in Revere politics, and those that knew her know that she was never shy of actually voicing her opinion. We will miss her and would like to take a moment of silence. So if we can have everyone stand. Before we continue with the public hearings, we have some, I would like to offer or request a suspension of rules in order to take up some department heads here that have some communications that I'd like for them to speak on. So,
Motion to suspend rules.
Thank you. So granted. Madam Clerk?
Calendar item number 10, communication from the city solicitor requesting a transfer of funds from the Community Improvement Trust Fund for the purpose of acquiring small parcels of vacant marshland by eminent domain for the purpose of salt marsh restoration.
Counsel?
The city wants to acquire these 3 parcels that I wrote out in that letter to you in order to reestablish the protection of the marshland in that area. They're vacant. They're filled with phragmites, which are creating drainage and flooding issues of concern to the city. So they'd like to take them. We had the appraisals done. I was not involved in any way, shape, or form in discussing anything with any of the owners, but I was advised that we want to take them by eminent domain. In order to do that, we need your approval and to appropriate the funds for that purpose. And if you have any questions about the appropriation part, Richard Viscay is here as well. But if you have any questions about why we're taking the land, I don't see Donnie Chiaramella here, but he could get into more detail as to why
Mr.
they need
President,
it.
if I may, that property is being taken to create a storage area for water that floods in there so much. We did the same thing on Gladys Street about 3 years ago. We created a storage area for over 2 million gallons of stormwater, and which goes right out to the B&M tracks now. So I'm 100% in favor of this, and I would hope that my colleagues would support me on this. I think it's a great motion, it's a great project to work on. And I hope someday maybe we'll be able to do more of the marsh like that. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if this is the fact or not, but stormwater has all kinds of chemicals in them, motor oil, whatever. If it's going into the marsh, we're not going to restore the marsh, we're going to kill the marsh. And the marsh is essential for our quality of life. So I'm wondering if the water that's going back into the salt marshes are filtered. Are they through pipes that have filtered, and these filters are going to be cleaned out on a regular basis? Or it's just going to be, put in the path of water?
My honest answer to that question is, hell if I know. That would be Donnie Chiaramella's answer, the question for Donnie Chiaramella. When they say restore the salt marsh, they mean get rid of the phragmites that are there, that are clogging it and then die, and don't allow for the water to have space to go. As far as contamination, that is not allowed. I don't know where the water's coming from, but I'm just not qualified to answer that question. Sorry.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. Through you to Council McKenna. And you can obviously have Director Chiaramella validate or invalidate what I'm about to say. So that retention area that they're about to create is basically taking storm water coming from the sky and so forth. No different than what we have at at Stony Brook, or for that matter, what's over down by the back of Route 1A North going up towards Astor Street, that area, same thing. You're going to have runoff no matter what, but this is just acting as a retention area. The Phragmites create a dam and not allow them to do that. So the water that's running off is going to be no different than any other place, just like over in Belle Isle where they have a ditch that's there. Or if you go down by Bay Road, there is a ditch that goes along there behind the St. George and those properties and so forth. And this one is down by the Lasdens, which is part of that same connection. And I think Councilor Powers might recall a photograph that was done with, God rest his soul, Bob Hass, who actually did an ad when he was running for mayor about cleaning out this area. So that it's that whole stretch of land. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Excuse me, I just want to add one, Councilor Rotundo brought it up, and it's a good point. The water that will be stored in these retention areas is water that comes basically from the Bay Road area, right into the marsh there. So this is a good thing for the city. Thank you.
Councilor Rizzo?
Yeah, just very quickly, Mr. President. I mean, this isn't, what's happening now is going to happen, it will continue to happen, whatever that is, when the city purchases it. I just think now we'll have more control. We'll be able to go in and, you know, clear the obstructions of Phragmites if we have the money we want to put towards it. So, you know, to me, it's very small amount of money to maybe get some benefit from it if we can get that area for more compensatory storage. So I'm in favor of it. Thank you, Mr. President.
If there are no other questions, I believe if there's no objection, we can vote on this. Roll call?
Shall the City Council approve a transfer in the amount of $20,500 from the Community Improvement Trust Fund for the purpose of acquiring vacant marshland on North Shore Road and Bay Road for the purpose of salt marsh restoration? Councilor Cogliandro?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna? Yes. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti?
Yes.
Yes, the appropriation has been approved. Calendar item number 11, communication from CFO Rich Visquet requesting an appropriation for Revere TV's quarterly invoice.
Good evening, councilors. As you are familiar with, every quarter we come before you to appropriate the cable access TV money that we receive from the subscribers of the city, and that money has to go into an account that has to be appropriated for the purposes of giving Revere TV money to operate. So this is basically a perfunctory appropriation, but happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
If there are no questions, I believe we can take a roll call on this.
Shall the City Council approve a transfer in the amount of $105,921,060 from the Cable Access Receipt Reserve Fund to pay Revere TV's quarterly invoice? Councilor Cogliandro?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo? Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti?
Yes.
Yes, the appropriation has been approved. Calendar item number 12, communication from CFO Rich Visquet relative to an appropriation from the Transportation Network Infrastructure Fund.
Good evening again. These dollars are the dollars that are generated through the Uber and the Lyft generation of pickups in the city. As you may know, we get 1 dime for every pickup that originates in the city of Revere, which doesn't seem like much, but we certainly have a lot of activity, being close to the airport and such. For calendar year 2022, the city received $61,541.70 from these rides, and as required by Mass General Law, it's required to be appropriated by this body so that we can put it towards the transportation network, which is basically road repairs, street repairs, et cetera. So simply an appropriation is needed by the council so we can access those dollars. Thank you.
Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question. Do you have, off the top of your head, do you know if this number is higher this year than it was last year?
It's higher than it was last year, but it's not as high as it's been when we first started this. As we get out of the recovery, I believe the highest amount we got was about $100,000. So I anticipate it going up as we come out of the economic downturn.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We can take a roll call on this?
Shall the City Council appropriate $61,541.70 from the Transportation Fund to the Roadway Capital Fund in accordance with Chapter 187 of the Acts of 2016? Councilor Cogliandro?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna? Yes. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes,
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti?
Yes.
Yes, that appropriation has been approved.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Calendar item number 13, communication from the Election Commissioner relative to police officer assignments for September 6th and November 8th elections.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council.
Name and address for the record, please. I'm sorry.
Paul Fahey, Election Commissioner. The Votes Act, which you'll hear reference to, is the legislation that was passed by the legislature, signed by the governor relative to voting reforms. One of the items, it's a small item, but it requires council action. Previously, as is outlined in the letter that I sent to you, it was the sole decision of the police chief to decide on the deployment of police officers at the polls. That is now a requirement that we get council or in a town meeting or select board approval. I met with the chief to discuss this. There's a couple of other items that you'll have before you. We will have 8 voting locations for the September primary and the November general election. Our recommendation jointly, and it's primarily driven by the chief's thoughts as an expert on law enforcement, is that 1 police officer at each of these locations will be sufficient. This is particularly true because in the 5 of the 8 polling locations are schools, but there will not be students in the buildings on those days. If in the future we did have a situation where there were students in the buildings, we would reassess this and most likely come back to you and ask for additional police coverage for those locations. So 8 polling locations, 8 police officers is our recommendation. I would ask for council approval per the new legislation. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the Election Commissioner. Perhaps I should know this, but what was the reasoning behind the legislative change to give it to the city councils, boards of select boards, versus at the discretion of the commissioner and the chief, police chief?
It's an excellent question, Counselor, and I honestly do not know. I know that there were a lot of items that were being considered as a kind of an omnibus voting act. Some things that were being considered were not part of the final bill. Many things were. Compromises took place. I don't know what the original intent was behind doing this. Speculation, maybe something to do with cost. Maybe there were communities that felt that police were being over-assigned. I definitely don't think that's an issue here. That would be my guess, but that's just conjecture.
Councilor Rotundo.
Through you to Ms. Phil. Who forwarded that effort, by the way? Who was the one that was, like you would say, the maker of the motion here? Who presented that? Who was the catalyst behind it?
I'm not, Counselor, I really don't know. It was one of many items. When the Votes Act was approved, we received a summary, we always receive summaries and advisories by the Elections Department from the Secretary of State. Helps sort of break down what's in the legislation. It was noted that this had taken effect. I honestly don't know who the sponsor was. We could certainly find out. I don't know what the what the motivation was behind it.
Thank you very
it's
much.
not really a problem. It's just an additional
Sure. Thank you.
hurdle. Thank you.
Councilor Powers.
thank you, Mr. President. Paul, I have a question. I'm looking at the schedule here, and Ward 5, Precinct 1 goes to the Yacht Club. I understand that. Ward 5, Precinct 2, and 3, am I correct?
Yes.
Go to the Turkish Cultural Center, and then Ward 5, Precincts 1, 2, and 3 go to the Wayland School. Is that because they've split up Revere Street?
Counselor, I think you're referring to Ward 6 for the Wayland School. Oh,
Says
then
five
that
right
is my
here.
mistake, and I apologize. To be clear, and I'll send a revised letter, Ward 6 goes to the Whalen School. I
Yeah,
apologize.
I
Ward
was
5.
curious myself.
Yeah,
What-
no, I'm glad you brought it to my
That
attention.
stays at the
My
Turkish
error.
Cultural Center, right?
Yeah. So Ward 5, 1 goes to Point of Pines Yacht Club, 5, 2, and 5, 3 are at the Turkish Cultural, and all of the Ward 6 precincts go to the Whalen School.
Thank you.
So,
Is that
sorry for the, apologies for that.
Councilor Rizzo?
Yes, Mr. President, through you to Paul, thank you for being here. I'm just a little confused. So all of Ward 3 is now going to be voting at the high school?
Yeah. So,
I mean, so
Councilor,
it's gone from like the Lincoln and St. Anthony's now to getting everybody in Ward 3 to go vote at the high school. It's, you know, we're going to have to really, if you want to push people to get out and vote, if that's the goal. I mean, these people don't know where they're going anymore. I mean, people in 3-1 and 3-2 was showing up at the Lincoln School, I think up until the last election, or one of the last elections, only to find out they've got to go now to St. Anthony's. Now they don't go to St. Anthony's anymore. They all got to go to the high school. This is becoming real confusing. And I think one of the things I said that when you first took over as election commissioner was, we need some stability. I mean, but geographically, we're not growing. So population-wise, yes. Geographically, no. We should be able to have certain voting locations that people can depend on and go vote at. It's like a moving target. People don't know whether it's Ward 5, Ward 3, Ward 6. I mean, they voted at the ITAM for a while, then they went to St. Mary's. They were voting at the fire station in North Revere. Now they're back at the... I mean, it's just, I mean, people, there's enough apathy out there right now anyway. I mean, voters are tired, and to just further confuse them, and I'm not blaming, this isn't picking on you or your department. I'm just saying, I think going forward, these things have to be considered, because people need to know and have some stability when they're gonna go vote, that they can kind of turn their brains off and not have to do any research on where they have to go vote. That's, that's all I have, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I can speak briefly to that. And
Go ahead.
all of the items before you are kind of interrelated, and I'm sure other questions will come up. So the approach that we took, and the Election Commission, the board has endorsed this as well, is that obviously there were changes during COVID that drove consolidation of locations. We've tried to minimize any changes to those changes that people are now used to from the 2020 presidential, all of the 2021 special elections. An exception is absolutely Ward 3. With the re-precincting that took place before I got here, I like to say that, the church is no longer in Ward 3, St. Anthony's. And I will say, St. Anthony's was a wonderful partner, and my predecessor worked closely with them. I worked with them early on. One of the challenges with St. Anthony's is, A, it's not in the ward anymore, and B, because they have an absolute locked-in event on Monday nights, it's a very challenging location to set up for Tuesday morning. It's a real challenge. So my thought was to have a consolidated location similar to what we've done in Ward 1, in Ward 5, in Ward 4, and in Ward 6. It is a change for folks, absolutely. What used to be 5-3 in that small foyer area of the school has been moved to the Turkish Cultural. Most of the other ward and precinct locations, with a couple of minor exceptions, have stayed the same as we've had for the last couple of years. And that was the reason, Councilor, is that people, yes, they've had change, but they've been sort of used to, at least for the last couple of years, these locations. So we really tried to minimize those changes. So I will also say, and the commission, my commission has stated, we're going to do an analysis after these elections and see what impact, if any, these changes have had. There's a lot of moving pieces, obviously, with early voting and vote by mail and so forth. But we will be looking at this, but we don't want to make change for the sake of change. There were a lot of changes that were forced due to COVID and so forth. So that's just so you know what our thinking is in regard to this.
Thank you.
Councilor Morabito first, and then we'll go down.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, to the Speaker. So I think there's already a lot of confusion, and that's expected, where people are voting this year at one location, and then another election, they're voting somewhere else. So I think where all locations, where there's a dramatic change, where there's one ward voting at one location, think we need to do some outreach, voter outreach. I know one of the ward counselors was out last weekend doing some voter outreach, and I think that's something we have to do in your position, whether it's a reverse 311 call, whether we send out mailers and to all of Ward 3 and say, hey, you are now voting at Revere High School. Your location has changed. Any way we can simplify it for the voter, that's what we need to do.
Councilor, thank you, and let me just update you on a couple of things relative to just along the lines of what you're talking about. We did send out a postcard to every household where there's a registered voter, citywide, telling them where they would be voting, what ward and precinct they're in, because the one variable is whether they're in the 16th or the 19th Suffolk district for the state representative seats. We gave that information as well. So every household with voters in the city has or will receive that card. I know they're getting it because we're already getting the bad ones back, the mistakes and so forth, and addresses. Second of all, to your point, we will be doing 2 reverse 911 calls. We are going to call citywide. It's I don't want to target because I don't want to confuse people more, because when you do that geo-targeting, you know, I may live next door to you and it's bringing me in, but technically I'm in a different ward or precinct. So we're going to send out this robocall to everybody saying your polling location may have changed. We're going to give them a very simple way to look it up or encourage them to call our office. And I know the mayor's office is planning on doing some additional social media on the website. Having said all of that, I know it's confusing. I think, you know, one of the reasons that we held off on doing too much publicly was because of the Ward 5 special election, which was, as you know, was held under the old precinct and the old ward lines because it was a vacancy under the current council. Now, some of those folks are going to be moving and voting in a different location. So I feel like it's really affected some of Councilor Power's constituents. So those are the efforts that we're doing, but certainly if councilors, I know Councilor Cogliano and I have talked about this, you know, just are doing outreach just to let people know. If all else fails, please have them call our office. And
now, will the outreach continue next election as well?
Yes, it'll continue for these 2 elections. And like I said, I mean, it'll continue going forward, but hopefully with these 2 elections, most people will, and you know, if we feel, based on research and coming and talking with you, that we need to make some changes to these polling locations, we will recommend that. But to Councilor Rizzo's point, I think we don't want to do that unless there's a really compelling reason. People are, you know, they may have liked to have voted where they voted in the past, but I think we want that sort of continuity. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. President. Paul, I have a concern, and you'll have to answer it for me. So everybody on Ward 1 is going into Beachmont, am I right? Mm-hmm. My ward has increasingly got bigger. I also now have Garfield. And I have a lot of people that live on the other side of Beachmont that are elderly, you know, and now they have to come to Beachmont to vote. I have a really big concern with that. I really do. I don't think it's fair. I think if you're going to set up something, maybe you use the Immaculate Conception Church, the auditorium or something for those people in Precinct 3 that have to come over the bridge to go to Beachmont. And even Garfield, too. They have to leave Garfield to go to Beachmont. I have a big concern with this. So, I mean, how do you know if it's going to work or not? You know, I mean, when will you know if it's going to work? You're going to try it, and then if it doesn't work, will you change it?
So our plan is for these 2 upcoming elections that these would be the polling locations, and then do an analysis afterwards and see what impact. Some of it is quantitative. What impact did voter participation in a certain area drop because of the change in voting location and so forth? The other thing to factor into this is now that we have permanent early voting, I will tell you that we've had vote by mail, we've had about 3,000, which is roughly 10% of the registered voters who have applied for vote by mail, and the vast majority of them are returning them. So we expect that's going to, you know, that's an option for people that they didn't have before. Obviously, traditional absentee voting as well as early voting. So that does not solve the problem. But to your point, we'll analyze all of this. If we think that we need to make a change, I'd rather not do it unless there's a compelling case, because then it's, to the earlier point, then there's more confusion about, well, I just voted in this poll in November, and now the local elections are next year, and you're making me vote somewhere else. So from my perspective, I'd rather not do that. But if there's a compelling case, and this may be a perfect example of that, then we could do that.
And one more thing, if you're going to do it at Beachmont, it definitely needs more signage. There's no signage, and people don't know that they have to go through a parking lot and then go to the gym. People ask
you know, where do we vote? So people are going in the front door, they're going in the side door, so I just want to make that
Yeah.
clear. Thanks.
And you will see enhanced signage, Counselor, and that's an ongoing thing. There will be an expense associated with that, so I'm telegraphing that the next budget round, probably be asking for some additional money, but we want to get some much more sort of colorful signs that catch people's attention. And yours is a perfect example, because you drive by there and you don't necessarily know, so, points taken.
Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. President. So a couple of my points have already been driven home. You know, we've had a lot of changes throughout the pandemic. I agree with some of the comments from fellow councilors about confusion in regards to where people are voting. You know, with the redistricting, new commissioner, you know, I'd like to find a new home. And one of the details that hasn't really been brought up is safety. With the amount of violence and shootings we've had at schools, one of the concerns was to make sure that we could have a secure place for people to go. And if we're going to utilize a school, we want to make sure that it's safe for everyone. We never know who's walking into these locations. You know, it's not like we're doing metal detectors and pat-downs. So I'm happy with Revere High School, and I'm going to look into further, hoping that the city can provide maybe transportation for elderly. I also know that a lot of people have done mail-in voting as well, but I just wanted to mention the security aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Falvey, I really hate to kind of continue the conversation that has been enunciated by my colleagues. As this is the new map, it's pretty gerrymandered, as we all knew beforehand. One of the things that I would ask for is that we send out an actual map to the people within a particular ward, so they know exactly where they are. And it says, this is where you are, this is where you vote. Because I can tell you on election day, that's not gonna happen. And we need to do something on election day, sent out, or the day before the election, send out to people saying, this is where you vote tomorrow if you choose to vote. In the language of, English as well as Spanish, Arabic, and several other languages, to accommodate people. Because I don't really believe that no matter what education we do now, until that time, for many people, it's just not going to, come to fruition. It's just like putting up the stop sign or changing the one-way street in the city. It takes time for people to get it. That's more, tactile for them because they have to deal with it every day. This is not.
Yep. I would note, Counselor, just the postcard that went out did in fact have a map. Now, it's not a huge map, so the clarity of it is not perfect. We do have it on the website. We have the printed map, but you're right. So to your point, whatever we do, we will also do things leading up to the November election, because generally the turnout in November would be higher than a primary. So some people may not vote in September and then may vote in November and would need that clarity as well. So, understood.
Thank you.
Councilor Novoselsky, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just as a FYI, I have breakfast with people from all over the city, and someone used to vote at St. Anthony's, and he lives like one street away. Now he has to go to the high school. I said, did you check Revere website? He said, no, and I did, and it still shows a star at St. Anthony's Church on the Revere website, so
Okay.
you may want to.
I'll check the map. There's a few different versions of the map that are out there. There were some versions during the redistricting, re-precincting process. The current map should only have the new locations, and you're correct, St. Anthony's is not one of them, so I'll double check on that.
Thank you, Mr. Fahey. If there is no objection, I think we can vote on this or take a roll call.
And again, this was on the police officer detail assignments
Yes.
for the elections. In accordance with Chapter 92 of the Acts of 2022, the Votes Act, shall the City Council approve the detailing of 8 police officers for the September 6th and November 8th elections. Councilor Cogliandro.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Morabito? Yes, Counselor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Silvestri?
Yes.
Yes, and Counsel President Visconti?
Yes.
Yes, that's been approved. Calendar item number 14, communication from the Election Commissioner requesting approval of an act relative to voting precincts in the city of Revere.
Mr. President, members of the council, one of the things that we've talked about in the past, but not this evening, it particularly relates to Ward 5. When the re-precincting was done, both the current, the new Ward 5 Precinct 1 is inclusive of both the Point of Pines neighborhood and then coming down kind of along the beach there, and is also inclusive of Jack Satter House. So 2 previous polling locations were in one precinct. We can't have 2 polling locations for one precinct. We can have multiple precincts in one polling location, but not the reverse. The decision that we made for this election, because we needed legislative approval, which is what's before you tonight, was that we would have the Point of Pines Yacht Club be the polling location for 5-1, and that we would do at Jack Satter House, in addition to early voting by mail and so forth, we have an early voting location. So I've worked with the Jack Satter House director and their leadership. We will have early voting in City Hall for the normal required time, which is essentially the week before the primary, but we will have special early voting locations at Jack Satter House that folks there have already been notified of. They will be reminded about that this week. They can vote by mail, they can vote early, but unfortunately, because of the way that that re-precincting was done, to essentially recreate 5-1A, which is what we're seeking to do, we need legislative approval. So what's before you is a draft home rule petition. I assume you'll probably refer it to committee. I'm happy to come and speak in more detail, but that's the purpose, is to get this started. I've spoken with Representatives Janino and Turco in Senator Edwards' office. They're waiting to move this forward. Rep. Janino's on the Elections Laws Committee, so it was at least her belief informally that this could probably move in the fall during informal sessions. It's certainly not controversial. Piece of legislation that would have to wait, and hopefully would be in place, and then that would be one change next year, is we would recreate 5-1. I think people would be happy because folks who live at or near Jack Satter House would then be able to go and vote there again. So it was kind of a quirk from the re-precincting, and it's something I think we need to fix. So I would just come to committee when you would like me to speak more about it.
Council Powers.
Paul, I have a question now. Are you saying that if a person lives at the Jack Satter House, they would have to go down to the yacht club to vote?
If anyone who lives in 5-1, which includes the residents of the Jack Satter House, if they wish to vote on Election Day, would need to go to Point of Pines.
So we're eliminating the auxiliary precinct.
That was done through the re-precincting process, Councilor.
Okay. and
We went from 21 precincts to 19. 5-1A and 5-2A were eliminated.
There's somebody sitting in the audience, actually, that I see that lives down in Oak Island. Does that mean they'll have to go up to vote?
Yes. The early voting at Jack Satter House is open to anyone in the city who wishes to vote early, but we specifically establish voting sessions there for the folks in that neighborhood, particularly the folks at Jack Satter House, because that location is not available.
If I live at the Jack Satter House, are you saying that I can vote early instead of going out?
Yes, that was our intent. You can vote early at City Hall. You can vote early at the Jack Satter House. There are 16 hours of early voting that have been scheduled between now and the election. But if you choose to vote, or you can vote by mail, but if you choose to vote on Election Day, Jack Satter House will not be a polling location. Those folks would have to go to Point of Pines.
So I'm getting a little confused here. A person that lives at the Jack Satter House, early voting, will be able to vote at the Jack Satter House?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I think this whole thing is something that Council Rizzo makes a good point. We have to, re-examine this, because I can't, in my figure, why a person that lives on Woodland Road, Arcadia Street, Ellenton Street, any of those, Glendale, Gladys, would have to go all the way up to when the Jack Satter House, which was always a precinct, is so much more accessible to the local residents. And that is what we're trying to do, encourage people to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Absolutely
it's something we have to
agree,
look at.
but we cannot, based on the fact that when the re-precincting was done, 5-1, it was inclusive of both of those previous polling locations, and we made the decision to do it this way. We could have done it the other way, and the folks from Point of Pines would have had to have come to Jack Sarah House. This was the way we chose to do it for this, but it's not optimal at all. It's unfortunate. Again, I wasn't here during the re-precincting. I'm not going to speak to that, but that's something that needs to be fixed, and this is our opportunity to
The
fix
reason
it.
I mention it, because people live, a lot of people live at the Jack Sarah House in that 518 precinct. They're retirees, they're elderly people. It's a chore for them to get in a vehicle if they can and get down to the Point of Pines Fire Station.
And Counselor, that's
the
the
yacht
reason
club.
why we established early voting sessions at Jack Sarah House. They're open to anyone in the city, because under the law, early voting, you can't offer just to one or the other. But the intent is to make that available for Jack Sarah House residents who don't want to go to Point of Pines on Election Day. They have 16 hours in the week before the election, mornings, evenings. We've set it up so that they do have that option if they choose not to vote by mail.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Paul, I'm totally confused on,
And my work is done here, Counselor.
precinct 23A. Now, you're saying that the other polling location other than 23 shall be located at or near the Garfield School to serve voters residing in the areas bounded by Sumner Street, Walnut Ave, Centennial Ave. When I looked at the map, 23A was over in Hitchborn Street in a different representative district. I think it was a 16 or 9, it was Representative Janino's area.
Okay.
And 23A was going to be at Hyman Towers with the other two precincts. I don't read that here.
Okay. Counselor, you raise a really good point. I'm going to take a look at that language before the session. I may have some amended language for you
Yeah,
for the
'cause
session.
this shows Centennial Ave, and
Yeah.
Centennial Ave was
Yeah.
close to 3A.
Yeah.
So please
Yeah,
review
no, I'll
that.
have revised language. The sub-precincts are a requirement, as you know, when you have the split of a precinct between two representatives. So that, I have a fear that that may be language from the previous, this law was passed 10 years ago, by the way, to do sub-precincts.
And I believe that my ward is the only ward that splits representative districts.
That is
So I
correct.
have two reps in my ward.
You do.
Aren't you lucky?
Yeah, lucky me. Double the power.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you.
So I just want you to bring that up,
Understood.
because I want to be very clear on that.
Absolutely,
Because I don't
Counselor.
want this to happen, because I'm reading it this way.
Councilor Rotundo.
First and foremost, I wonder if we could set up like a little subcommittee regarding this, speak about this more, and second, can we move the question?
Yeah, that's fine. We can, to speed up legislation, I think it's best that we vote on this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that?
No, I
it
think you
isn't?
should, I would
Okay,
recommend,
then you would
Counselor,
recommend
your
it?
call that you go to subcommittee.
Then let's send it to
agree.
legislative affairs, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. President,
Yes.
this isn't something that's going into effect this year.
No.
Okay.
So this will be for the city election
Great.
for next
It
year.
looks like Paul has some work to do, and best of luck.
I'll clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
Calendar item number 15, communication from the Election Commissioner seeking approval for various polling locations.
Council, there is a requirement that under Mass General Law that when we do change polling locations, that the council approves that, and you have the list of where the changes are. Again, the vast majority have already been established, but the ones that have changed are before you for your approval.
So are these, before I open it up to the council, these are the correct polling locations?
That is correct.
That we are going to vote on? Are there any questions regarding the polling locations? Councilor Sereno.
Mr. President, through you to the Election Commissioner. Just curious, I know we had spoken before, earlier this year, about the possibility of merging 6-1, 6-2, and 6-3 in the gymnasium of the Wayland School. So that way, people aren't confused going between the gym and the cafeteria and whatnot. But I see here that the cafeteria is still for 6-3. So I'm just curious why we did not make that.
And Counselor, I think I said this at the time, and if I didn't, I apologize. Again, I think we wanted to minimize the change for people as much as possible. This is something that we would look at after these elections and see what the impact is. It may well be it's a relatively minor change because it is the same location, but a different part of the school. So we wanted to, frankly, make as few changes as possible between where people have been voting and where they're going to vote in the fall. But I remember you made that point, and that's something we will look at, and I think that may be something we would do in 2023.
Okay. If there are no further questions, we can take a roll call on this.
Shall the City Council approve the change in polling locations for Ward 2, Precinct 3A, Ward 3, Precincts 1 through 3, Ward 5, Precinct 2, and Ward 5, Precinct 3? Councilor Cogliandro.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri.
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti.
Yes.
Yes, the polling locations have been approved.
Great.
Calendar item number 16, communication from the Election Commissioner relative to the warrant for the upcoming state primary on September 6th.
Mr. President, the warrant is before you for approval, as is past practice.
Madam Clerk, any questions? Roll call? Oh, all in favor, all opposed? So ordered. Great.
Thank you.
No.
We have one late communication from, Jamie Nadworny, firefighter, disclosure form filing by a special municipal employee.
Good evening, councilors. Michael Wells, Director of Municipal Inspections, 249R Broadway. As you know, during the budgeting process, we had requested and were approved for an additional full-time electrical inspector in the FY23 budget. Position has been posted as a part-time position and as a full-time position for roughly about the past 4 or 5 months. We've had some difficulty in hiring for this position for various reasons. And tonight I ask you to grant special municipal employee status to Jamie Nadworny, a Revere Fire Department lieutenant and also a licensed electrician. Jamie will be working part-time conducting electrical inspections for the city and will have no interference with his role at the Revere Fire Department. This practice has been done in the past as well with other firefighters that fill the role as electrical inspector.
Councilors, Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say that I think this is a great opportunity to have someone that is very versed in not just the electrical field, but the safety field. The reason, we all know the reason that these positions stay open is because most electricians are going to make double and triple what these positions pay. So you're either going to get a retiree or someone that can do it on a temporary or part-time basis with another job. So having him work in the city as a in the fire department and then working in the part-time role at the electrical inspectors, it's much needed. We all know that. We all get the calls. People are waiting on permits. People are looking to get their buildings ready to do whatever they need to do. So it's, I hope that we can expedite this and get him started. Be in full support. Thank you.
Councilor Maravito.
Thank you. I've known Mr. Nadworny for a long time, and I've known how he works in the private sector as well as his role on the fire department. And once again, this role has been posted for 4 or 5 months. We've had no luck whatsoever. And I think he'd be a good role, and it would be an easy transition for him.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I completely agree. And let's, Madam Clerk, if we can take a roll call on this.
Shall the City Council approve the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20D disclosure form for Jamie Nadworny to enable him to work as both a part-time electrical inspector and a firefighter? Councilor Cogliandro.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri.
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti.
Yes.
Yes, the disclosure form has been approved.
Thank you, councilors.
Back to the regular order of business.
Back to the regular order of business.
Approval of the journal of the regular meeting of July 11th.
So moved.
Public hearings, calendar item number 3, hearing held as ordered on a petition filed by National Grid and Verizon to install 3 jointly owned poles on Thornton Street near the intersection of Shirley Avenue to provide OSHA overhead clearance for new structures located at 57 Shirley Ave, and 64 Shirley Ave.
Press the mic. Name and address?
Zachary Trainey, 31 Mapleton Street, Brighton, MA. Good evening, Council President, Councilor members. My name is Zachary Trainey. I work with National Grid Electric. I'm here on behalf of National Grid Electric to petition for 3 joint-owned poles alongside Verizon. Before I get into the details, oh, sorry. Is this any better? Better? I can start over. Hi. My name is Zachary Trainey. I'm here with National Grid Electric. We'd like to install 3 joint-owned poles alongside Verizon. I'm hoping this diagram on the intersection of where we'd like to install these poles was passed around. If not, I can pass around my copy. Does everybody have these? Thank you.
Okay. Why don't we start off with the board?
I just have a few more notes, and then I can open up to everyone. So we'd be installing 3 joint-owned poles on Thornton Street. This is at the intersection of Shirley Ave and Thornton Street. These poles would provide OSHA clearance for our overhead high-voltage primary power lines. As of right now, there's 1 building sitting. It's waiting on power. The other building is in construction and progressing fast. Installing these poles would allow us to reorient the power lines to the other side of the street and allow any workers working on the buildings to safely operate. If anyone has any questions.
Well, we're in a public hearing, so we're gonna. I gotta put my mic on. We're still in a public hearing, so this, we're entertaining proponents. Any other proponents on this matter? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close that side. Any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close that side. Councilors, let's start off with the ward councilor.
Thank you.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the first I've heard of this happening. I understand why, knowing the 2 new buildings that are being built. But I just want to make sure when they do the new poles, that they put concrete back around the base of them, because they have a habit of making an extra wide hole for the pole and leaving asphalt, not even asphalt, dirt for months and months and months. And then they put asphalt in it, and honestly, it looks tacky.
I agree.
And it looks like you guys are not doing your job very well and not making us very happy. So I insist on concrete being put back at those locations. But I understand the overhead wires are crossing all over the place. And now, are they going to have new transformers on any of these poles?
So the pole 2515-1, that's located near 69 Shirley Ave, that will have a transformer located on it. I believe there's an existing transformer on pole 1920, so we'd have to relocate that to the 2515-1 below.
And what size transformer are they putting in?
That'll be a 3-phase bank.
3-phase?
Yeah.
Is it
So it'll be the
50 or 75?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Normally they're 50 kVA.
50?
So they're the 3 banks,
Right.
so fairly heavy. That's the reasoning why we'd like to put a pole there. That pole's not so much for clearance-wise, but more to relocate that
Right.
transformer.
With the amount of electricity being used in the neighborhoods now, there's a lot of extra effort put up by these transformers. So I
Agreed.
just make sure we get a large enough transformer in there, or transformers, to be able to adequately take care of the neighborhood, so,
So these apartment buildings will be
Right.
putting the transformer on their actual
on the pad.
property,
That's
on the
correct.
pad. So it'll be completely serviced to them. It won't affect anyone
Good.
else in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no objections to this. Thank you.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just wondering, is there residents near there, Councilor Novoselsky? Okay. Are you going to inform the residents that this is going to happen, and it's a couple of days before it happens?
Which residents are you referring to?
That live there, that's going to be impacted by the work?
You know, can I get back to you on that?
Sure.
I'm just gonna ask my supervisor on the
Okay.
logistics of it.
Okay, thank you.
I can definitely get back to you
If
on
I
that.
may, Mr. President, through you, just to let you know that they do post on the telephone poles, no parking when they plan on doing some work there.
Correct.
I just had it,
There was an apartment house.
the reason why is I just had 2 incidences in Beachmont, so and I'm going to get to that, so thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes outages are the only way we're able to, you know, move these live lines around. But I will get back to you on that specific incident.
Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry, who do you represent again? Are you here for Verizon, or are you here for National Grid?
National Grid Electric.
Okay, but you're working with Verizon on pole locations and things like that?
So I solely work for National Grid. When we
Okay.
do these polls, we often do jointly owned polls. So this allows them to put their own supportive equipment, say they want to do some kind of Gaia wire to hold up the pole upright.
Okay.
We also have poles where it's just only owned by National Grid.
Okay.
So it would be us installing the pole.
Well, so if you could just, you know, the only time we really get to, I mean, you know, when you guys come up asking us for something is really one of the only times we get to get a real person to talk to. I mean, and this is no disrespect to anyone at the companies. I've had a good working relationship with National Grid and Verizon over the years, but, you know, when you're coming up looking for additional authorization by the city council, it's always a good time to mention a couple of locations, and if I could, Mr. President, through you, just a couple locations that have been going on for a long, long time, one for years, and this one is, the first one is just an unsafe situation, was in front of 150 Taft Street. I know Councilor McKenna has been working on this for some time, as I have. It's pole number 2025. It's a very dangerous pole. It's been marked off with a big X. I checked in with Verizon back about a little less than a month ago, and they waived their responsibility for it. Apparently, they're saying that it's not their pole, or they don't, you know, so, I don't know. There's a big X on it, but nobody's moving it, and it's a dangerous pole. The other one is on the corner of Bruno Street.
Could I just ask the street name for that?
It's in front of 150 Taft Street.
T-A-F-T.
T-A-F-T.
Gotcha.
T-A-F-T. Yes, and just one more, Mr. President, if I may, just because they're up here now, it's in front, at the corner of Bruno Street and Washington Avenue. Another double, that's a double pole, and I don't know, you know, Verizon says that National Grid won't get off the pole, National Grid says Verizon won't get off the pole, Comcast won't get off the pole. I don't know, the people who live there don't care about who's on the pole, they just want the pole moved.
Agreed.
And so, they've had a double pole there. This is an elderly couple that I see quite a bit, and it's got to a point it's embarrassing when I see them that the pole is still there. So if you could at least look into that for us,
I can
okay? I
definitely-
would appreciate that.
I can definitely put some priority on that.
All right, I
And-
appreciate it. That would be helpful.
It's usually National Grid installing these poles, and then what we do is we move our equipment off, and then we give, say, this notice where I'm coming to now. It passes to Verizon, and then Verizon removes these poles.
Okay, I appreciate your help.
But I can definitely look into both of those.
All right, thanks.
And traditionally, we like to reach out to the ward members before coming here. This job was more passed to me, more or less last minute. But,
Did you take Dan Cameron's place?
No, he just retired though. I know
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I just work in design. I know he's more of the community outreach
Okay, I see.
officer.
All right. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, sir, for being here tonight. To echo Councilor Rizzo's concerns regarding the double pole at the corner of Bruno Street and Washington Ave, I've been working with Dan Cameron and Faith on that since at least November of 2020. The gentleman who actually Councilor Rizzo is referring to grabbed me at the polls on Election Day in 2020. So that's how far that goes back with me. And he had mentioned Councilor Rizzo was off the council at that time, but he had said Councilor Rizzo was working on it. My predecessor, Councilor Patch, had been working on it. So if we could get some movement on that. And then as well, I'm waiting on 2 issues that I had submitted to National Grid back, in February of this year. One is regarding a street lamp at pole number 2793 in front of 58 Carlson Avenue. So years ago, there was a car accident at this location. The pole came down, the light came down. They never replaced the street light, and that's over 20 years. And the other one is pole number 2591 in front of 60 Kingman Avenue. And I had requested that the wattage be lowered because that light shines into the backyard of or I should say, through the back of a house of a resident on Carlson Ave and shines into their bedroom. And they had requested that last Halloween. I ran into them. So these go back quite a way. So if you could take a look into those three issues, I deeply appreciate it.
I can definitely do all of that.
Thank you.
Sometimes just the overwhelming demand of issues gets backed up. And I would urge anyone here, if there is an issue, please reach out to our general line. And we like to always do any sort of complaint work with priority.
Great, thank you. It looks like you have some work ahead of you as well. And,
That's all right.
You thought it was just going to be Shirley
No,
Ave
I didn't.
area, didn't you, huh? If there's no objection, I think we can vote on this as well this evening. All right.
Shall the City Council grant the petition of National Grid and Verizon to install 3 jointly owned poles on Thornton Street in accordance with the plan on file? Councilor Cogliandro?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo? Is absent. Councilor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti?
Yes,
Yes, the petition has been approved.
great, thank you.
Thank you, Council President, council members.
Calendar item number 4, hearing called is ordered on the application of Enterprise Rent-A-Car Company of Boston, 50 Tomahawk Drive, East Boston, requesting a special permit from the Revere City Council to enable the appellant to operate an automotive truck rental office and storage use at 85 Squire Road.
We're going to start off with proponents. Those in favor. Name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Council President, City Councilors, Attorney Nick Zazula, McDermott, Quilty, and Miller, 28 State Street in Boston, here on behalf of Enterprise Rental Car. Several members of Enterprise Rental Car are here with me today from operations who have been here at the previous hearings. Happy to go into some more details or provide an update. I know it's already been a long evening. You got a lot of agenda items. I think at this point everyone is more than familiar about this application, this location, what's being proposed from the zoning amendment process that we went through back in May. Nothing has changed from that proposal at this time. So,
And as I can, remind the council that this is going to go into the zoning, so
Yep.
That's fine. If there are any other proponents, those in favor? Closing, seeing and hearing none, closing that side. Any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close that side. Councilors? If there are no...
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. President. I was just going to say move to send to zoning. We've already had
Absolutely.
conversation.
Couldn't
on
agree
it.
more.
Okay. All right.
Let's, we're going to refer this to zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. Thank you, everybody.
Calendar item number 5, hearing called is ordered on the application of Sethuan Sa EJS Investments, Inc., 1258 Elmwood Ave, Providence, Rhode Island, requesting a special permit from the Revere City Council to enable the appellant to raise the existing structure and construct 5 brand-new code-compliant townhomes at 84 Arcadia Street.
Proponents? Name and address for the record.
Good evening, City Council President.
If you can
City
lower the
Councilors.
mic a little bit.
Sorry. Good evening, City Council President, City Councilors. Attorney Nancy O'Neill of D'Ambrosio LLP, on behalf of the applicant Sethuan Sa and AGS Investments. We are seeking a motion to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay. There is a motion to withdraw without prejudice. So ordered. Any other proponents? Okay. No, hearing and seeing none. The motion to withdraw has been, no? You got to go through opponents? Okay. All right, then let's go through the formal process, and any opponents, those opposed?
With the understanding that it's going to be withdrawn, but I am opposed.
Okay,
Michael Tucker, 9 Ellerton Street, Revere, Mass.
okay, great. Any other opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close that side. Any councilors have any questions? No? Hearing and seeing none? The motion. Go. Roll call?
Shall the city council allow the petitioner to withdraw the application without prejudice? Councilor Cogliandro.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti?
Yes.
Yes, the application has been withdrawn without prejudice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calendar item number 6, hearing called is ordered on the application of 596 Brothers LLC and Beachmont Investments LLC, 596 Revere Beach Boulevard, Revere, Mass., requesting a special permit from the Revere City Council to alter the pre-existing non-conforming 8-unit structure by constructing 8 additional units over 2 new floors at 451 Revere Beach Boulevard.
I'm going to start off with proponents. Those in favor?
Good evening, City Council President, councilors. Attorney Jerry D'Ambrosio for the petitioner on this matter that's before you. I understand that you have a lengthy schedule ahead of you tonight, so I'll try to keep it quick. In essence, this is an application for a 2-story extension at 451 Revere Beach Boulevard. Currently, there is a pre-existing non-conforming structure there with 8 units. The proponent in this matter is seeking another 8 units or 2 floors above the current building. There is plenty of parking for the proposed 8 units. There is no parking relief request here. The only reason this is before the City Council is that it is a pre-existing non-conforming use from 1963. And because of its age and it going back over 60 years, any request to modify it must come before this City Council. That being said, when appropriate at subcommittee, we'd be happy to answer any questions about the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Hearing and seeing none. Any opponents? Those opposed? Any opponents? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Lawrence Michelson. I live at 454 Revere Beach Boulevard. And I am opposed to what they want to do, add 2 floors to that building. The building has been neglected and it does need upgrading. Unfortunately, the pictures that I took of the building, I wasn't able to get it developed. My wife got sick and I had to take her up to the hospital. So I apologize for that. But I do have a picture that I took with my camera that I'd like to show you from my living room. And I think if they put a couple of stories on there, it's going to change the light, the air quality, etc. I think that they'd be best to fix up the building the best they possibly can. There's no engineering plots or anything of that nature to substantiate that that building will hold 2 floors. They have no engineering papers on that at all. So how can you come before the council and ask for a permit to put 2 floors on a building without any engineering papers or any kind of plots? I don't understand that. So that's basically where I stand.
Okay.
The railings are bad. The bricks in the front are crumbling. It really needs attention, and I think that's where they should put their attention to, is fixing up the building and updating it, but not put 2 more floors on there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yes, you may. And also, I found out tonight, I think I need a hearing aid.
Well,
I think so.
yeah, that's,
Because I didn't hear half of what was going on here.
that's okay.
So I apologize for that.
No worries.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming. Any other opponents? Those opposed? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side. Any city councilors? Yeah, this is going to go to zoning, but are there any councilors? Council McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with the neighbor that lives next door. I think adding 2 floors will change the lighting of his property. I wouldn't want it in next to my house. I know Revere Beach is high-rises, but there's still people that are there's a neighborhood still there. And I know, eventually it might change, but I wouldn't want, if they're going to do this, I think they need to do a shadow study, a light study. So right now, I know it's going into zoning, but I agree with the neighbor that just came up to talk. Thank you.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a request, if there's any way they can get a rendering of what the building would look like,
Yeah, I'm sure
to
we'll
bring
have.
bring it to the meeting with you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's subcommittee. The architect is here. There's a bit of a snafu on his computer projections, but we'll have renderings. Just so the councilor knows, it's a legitimate issue that's being raised. Height is not one of the issues here. This zone for the city is already zoned for a maximum height of 120 feet. This structure will be 60 feet. So it's half what's allowed for under the current zoning for the city of Revere. So again, I want to make clear, and because maybe I went a little quickly, that the reason this is before the city council is simply because it's a pre-existing non-conforming structure from 1960. There is no request here for height relief, for parking relief, for none of that, which is traditionally asked for. The reason we're here is that it's an older structure from the 1960s, early 1960s, that was allowed. Now, one of the upsides in this is that going from 3 to 5 stories is that the entire building is going to have to be code compliant. So that means that the structure is going to be required to be upgraded from a fire safety engineering perspective. And there are architectural plans, but again, there'll be a total upgrade from a code perspective to make it code compliant. But as far as the height goes, it's literally half of what the zoning allows for in this area. So while I understand the concern, I'd suggest to the councilors that there are outside developers. This particular developer is from inside the city. There are outside developers who'd love to see this building ripped down and 100 units go up in its place because of where it's at. If anything, from a zoning perspective, the lot is being underutilized, significantly underutilized, and that's because it's a local family and they're trying to keep it reasonable and keep it small because they live in the city, and in fact, I believe this particular developer lives in the ward and on the beach. But we'd be happy to answer any questions at the subcommittee meeting.
Councilor Powers.
Sir, I just have one question that just comes to mind. You say there's a height that can go to 120 feet, correct?
That's correct.
So they're going half of that, okay? Now, my concern is now, and it just comes to mind, and I know we're going to discuss this further in committee, but will they be required to put an elevator in this building?
Whatever the code requires, they will do.
Yeah, and code, I'm sure, would require an elevator. Right?
It's going to require upgraded sprinkler system. It's going to require upgraded engineering. Whatever it requires, they will do. And at that point, I'd check it, but I believe it may require an elevator. Whatever the code requires, they will do.
I think it would, and well, we'll talk more at committee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I'll let you. You're the neighbor there, so I'll let you speak.
These people knew that they couldn't do it without Christina's property, which is at 450 Revere. It's in back of mine. They knew they couldn't do it. Now, the lots that are in back of Christina's house, there's 3 lots, that's conservation, and there's also wetlands. She tried to do something, and she couldn't do it. Zebra threw it out, wouldn't let her do it. Now, they come along, and they want to put parking in back of that. I disagree. It should be left the way it is. That's my bone of contention there.
Great.
Thank
No,
you.
Like I said,
And I think there was some hanky-panky that went on over there also.
Okay.
I think so.
This is going to go into zoning, so we're going to have some further discussion in the zoning subcommittee, so,
When I looked at that building, Christina's building, it was full of mold. The basement is a crawling basement. It stunk to high heaven. And she went to work, and she put the building together, added on to it, and now it's not a two-family. It's a rental day. And I'm opposed to that also.
okay.
So I wish that the board would look into that, please.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much for listening to me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming. If there are no other questions, refer this to zoning.
Calendar item number 7, hearing called as ordered on the application of 529 Broadway LLC, 52 Fairway Street, Winthrop, Mass., requesting permission to alter and extend a non-conforming use, which is a non-conforming commercial building acting as a private garage for the purpose of operating a commercial garage at 535 Broadway.
We'll start off with proponents. Those in favor, name and address.
Good evening, City Council President and City Councilors. My name is Paul Tellier from D'Ambrosio LLP at 14 Proctor Ave, Revere, Mass. If I may, I'm just going to pass over City Clerk. Apologize, I do not have a blow-up, but this is just a plan a little bit larger, exactly with a highlight for everyone. So as has been stated, what we're looking to do here is take a pre-existing non-conforming use as a private garage and have it altered to be a commercial garage. Mr. Sinaglia, who is the principal of 529 Broadway LLC, recently purchased a few months ago this garage, which is located at 529 Broadway. As many of you may know, that was Atlantic Auto Body. And in the back of the building, on the back side of the building, the highlighted portion on the plan that I provided to you is a rear building, a rear garage located at the back of 535 Broadway and currently accessed off of School Street. What Mr. Sinaglia is looking to do is to now close that off and have the access be from Broadway, so the access will no longer be on the residential side on School Street. They will come in through Broadway along 529 Broadway to the paved area in the back of 529 Broadway. He will use that as an auto body repair, as he does similarly at 529 Broadway, and he's going to clean up that location in the back, put in some landscaping, a fence, and some soundproofing to the building so that there's no longer any type of noise or anything back there for the residential neighbors. We are aware that there was some concerns expressed by a neighbor, Miss Marie Shand, who I believe is also here this evening. We've spoken with her on a couple of occasions as to the various things that I said, soundproofing, a fence, some landscaping. Our intention is prior to subcommittee to meet with her again to walk the property and address any of those concerns.
This being a public hearing, we're going to stick with proponents. Any other proponents on this matter? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side. Any opponents? Those opposed?
Good evening. My name is Marie Shand, 130 School Street in Revere. My only problem is my house, my kitchen and pantry are right there, close to that garage. This is the garage that you see from School Street. You don't see it from Broadway at all. You have to go diagonally across from Revere High School, and you'll see a little driveway, you'll see a little garage. That's the garage in question, and it's very close to my property. And right now, I am a full-time caregiver of my older sister. I really don't want a lot of noise. And the thing is, I really don't want an auto repair shop on top of my house. I don't care what kind of business he does there, but not an auto repair, because it's loud, noisy, and a lot of hubbub. So noise level is my concern. They've been very kind to me and talked to me, but they just talked to me like about 40 minutes ago they never approached me before, and they started mentioning things that they would like to do to improve the property, which I'm all for because it's been an eyesore my whole life. I've lived at 130 School Street for 32 years, but I also grew up in the house right behind it that was at 549 Broadway. That property has been a thorn in my side my whole life. So I would like to see it beautiful so I can be proud to say I come from Revere. I'd like to see a quiet lifestyle for me to continue. That's my problem. If they can guarantee me quiet, no noise, I'm all for it. But I really have to be guaranteed that because I have a sick sister and I'm home all the time. The only time I leave is for food shopping. So I would appreciate knowing exactly what Mr. Sanaya is going to be doing to that garage. I talked to his lawyer briefly. Like I said, he approached me 40 minutes ago via the telephone, but I still feel that I have to look into details and what kind of licensing is he going for after he turns this garage into a commercial garage. What's the licensing? It's not auto body because he already has the auto body license. Is it going to be an auto repair shop license? I mean, I don't know if you people know. I don't know.
Well, this is going to go into zoning, so I'm sure those questions will be asked.
And who should I talk to in the zoning?
You're going to be, you can come here when that zoning meeting is scheduled.
Okay, okay.
So,
I appreciate that.
But also, you can talk to the ward counselors as well. So
Okay.
we're still in the public hearing. So yes, to answer your question, it is going to go to zoning, so decision is not being made this evening.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yes, so there's going to be further discussion
Okay.
before a decision is rendered.
I don't want to get in the way of business. I just want quiet.
I agree. I agree.
That's it, you know?
No
Okay.
worries.
Thank you so much.
Anybody, any other opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side. City councilors? We'll start off with the ward councilor, Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. President. If it's okay with you, I know it's going to subcommittee, but
Yes.
where we do have a resident abutting this property, would it be okay to ask a few questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ms. Shand, I just want to let you know I received your letter right before the start of the meetings. I didn't have a chance to respond to you, but I did read it, okay? Sir, how are you today? Thanks for being here. I just want to know what is currently going on in this garage? What is it currently used for?
Sure. As I mentioned, Mr. Snoglia purchased the garage just recently. It was leased out, I believe, to the business that was in the front at 535. It's being used as a junk storage garage. And in fact, currently there's a large truck. It's really, when he purchased it, wasn't kept up well. He's looking to clean all that up. And if I understand correctly, if you look, the bay to go into the garage currently is off School Street. He's going to be putting the bays on the inside, on the 529 side, and closing that off on School Street.
Yes, I did. I neglected to say I did have an opportunity to go take a site visit there. I do like that he's going to be closing it off to School Street and take the traffic off of that street. Is there? What do you guys anticipate for the level of noise that might come out of that garage?
We don't expect any more noise than what is literally happening at 529, the L-shaped portion of it. But we do understand Ms. Shan's concerns, and so I've already spoken with my client. He's willing to soundproof the entire garage to make sure that the noise does not go over to the property. And as I mentioned, we would like to walk the property with her and take any concerns of hers into consideration so that we can address them.
Awesome. And just one last question.
Sure.
Hours of operation.
8 to 6.
How's that sound, Ms. Shand?
If I hear no noise, I really don't care.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that, again, this is going to zoning subcommittee. Ms. Shand, I'm the zoning chair. So we'll try and get as many of those concerns answered. Use was going to be one specific. This was formerly Atlantic Auto Body, correct?
Atlantic Auto Body is at 529 Broadway. It's now Bras Motors, but yes, it was formerly.
And use, aesthetics, I know there was some concerns, I think, in the letter with fumes, odor, and noise is really probably, we just want to make sure that we get these issues remedied. And of course, we want to define it so she explicitly understands the use that can be allowed in this site. So we'll just hope to discuss that further in zoning.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Great. If there are no other questions, we're going to refer that to zoning.
Calendar item number 8, hearing called is ordered at the request of Global Revco Terminal LLC, 101 Lee Burbank Highway, Revere, Mass., to terminate the following flammable storage licenses granted by the Revere City Council on July 13th, 1937, 424A, 424C, and 558.
Okay. Being a public hearing, we're going to start off with proponents again. Those in favor? Is anybody here in favor? Probably not. Okay. Okay. Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side. Opponents? Those opposed? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close that side. City councilors? Council McKenna?
I just want to say that I am in favor of this, and I know it's going to zoning, but,
We're going to try to vote
excuse
this.
me?
We're going to try to vote this
It
out.
isn't?
No, we'll vote this out,
Oh, we can vote it out? Okay.
if there's no objection.
What they're planning to do down there is tremendous. They're going to get rid of 24 storage tanks and put technology, 2 technology warehouses,
Yep.
which will be robotics. So, and they're going to clean up the contaminated dirt down there. So I think it's wonderful.
Great. Okay. If there are no other questions from the council, and there's no objection, we can vote this out this evening. Thank you. We're going to take a roll call on this.
Shall the City Council terminate storage of flammable licenses 424A, 424C, and 558 for 101 Lee Burbank Highway as requested by the property owner? Councilor Cogliandro?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido? Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti?
Yes.
Yes, those storage of flammable licenses have been terminated.
Okay.
Next up is the zoning subcommittee report.
Councilor Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, we had one item in front of us, and that was discussed with a large audience. There was, through yourself and Council McKenna, there was also an amendment to the ordinance in front of us. The ordinance with the amendments were all voted on unanimously in a favorable position. So I'd like to report that out as favorable with amendments.
Okay. Ordered on a second reading as amended? Ordered on a third and final reading as amended. Roll call for engrossment and ordainment.
Shall the City Council approve an ordinance further amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Revere relative to research and development facilities as amended? Councilor Cogliandro.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido. Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo. Yes. Councilor Sereno.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri.
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti.
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance is engrossed and ordained.
Okay.
Calendar item number 17, communication from Representative Giannino requesting that the City Council sign on to a letter of opposition regarding the DEP's appeal of the Point of Pines Fire Station.
If there are no questions, we can take a, yes?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I understand that the appeal was withdrawn,
Okay,
and this is a moot point at this point, no?
okay. Yes, Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excuse me. We had a meeting down there this past week with the DEP and representatives, and they seemed to be at that time favorably, withdrawing. And while they didn't say anything, I got information later on that they have withdrawn their application. I believe that would be the last thing standing in our way to get moving on the fire station. We have to go out to bid. That would be the next process. That's probably a 4 or 5 week period. And then at that point there, construction could be started.
Great.
And I feel that's exactly, I was going to put a motion in myself. In fact, I did. But I want to take this opportunity also to thank Representative Turco and our new state senator. And I feel very certain that they had a good part to play in this already. And I want to particularly thank Representative Giannino. She was back in July of 2019. She was sitting in the city council and she voted for the appropriation to build the fire station. I want to really thank her. That was a tremendous vote. In fact, as did Councilor Rotundo and other members of this city council. It was a 11-0 vote in favor. So and I know the people down the Pines will be very happy with this. It's when you're building a fire station, it's not like you're building a ranch house. It's a public safety facility. And there were many different avenues that we had to pass to get to this stage right now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council. Madam Clerk, if there are no other questions, we'll take a roll call on this.
Shall the City Council sign on to Representative Giannino's letter of opposition concerning DEP's appeal of the Point of Pines Fire Station? Councilor Cogliandro.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido. Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri.
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti.
Yes.
Yes. The the council will unanimously sign on to the letter. Calendar item number 18, communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Joseph Gravelisi to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees.
Yes. No, this can get placed on file.
Placed on file, the mayor or the mayor's designee does not require city council approval by ordinance. Okay?
We'll place that on file.
Calendar item number 19, communication from the mayor relative to the membership of City Council President Visconti on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees.
Just so I can clarify, it is a position that will be held by the acting city council president. So I was, so that being said, that's why my name is up there right now. Thank you. All the future presidents as well. So we'll place that on file as well.
Calendar item number 20, petition from Wayne Rose, 19 Thorndike Street, and others requesting a non-binding public advisory opinion regarding biolabs to be placed on the next regular municipal election ballot in accordance with MGL Chapter 53, Section 18A.
With that being said, if there's no questions regarding this, we can place this on file? Yes. Yes, but there's actually no question that has been asked here. We'll place this on file? Thank you.
Calendar item number 21, we're on to motions. Motion presented by Councilor Rotundo. That the mayor request Bob O'Brien, Frank Strengy, or designee to provide the city council with all meeting minutes regarding every meeting held with HYM in the community pertaining to the Suffolk Downs Overlay District and the Life Sciences Building between May 17 and the date of the PLA signing with HYM.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been great consternation about whether there was enough transparency and so forth and information provided to the public regarding this. My sole goal is to compile this information, put it in a particular area, and perhaps duplicate it and put it in the library and have people see exactly what transpired, what took place. There's just been much, as I said, consternation over this. That's the sole purpose of this. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay. Any other comments from the councilors? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 22, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor request the Chief of Data and Innovation Management to create a page on the city's website dedicated to the creation of the Suffolk Downs Overlay District to enable easy access for the public.
Councilor Rotundo.
Mr. President, that coincides with the motion previously in order to provide the information to the public. Thank you.
All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 23, motion presented by Councilor Rizzo, that the mayor request the Director of Public Works to appear before the City Council to discuss the trash ordinance and the use of city barrels.
Councilor Rizzo.
Mr. President, I'd like to withdraw this motion. I've already received my answers, so please withdraw motion number 22-226. Thank you.
Motion withdrawn.
Calendar item number 24, motion presented by Councilor Rizzo, that the mayor be requested to contact MassDOT to request a cleanup in areas under their jurisdiction in and around Bell Circle. There are numerous shopping carts, trash and debris, as well as the median strip on American Legion Highway that is in need of cleanup.
Councilor Rizzo.
Mr. President, basically the motion speaks for itself, but there's a lot of areas. I noticed going up onto the on-ramp onto Route 1 on Sergeant Street. It's filthy over there. For whatever reason, it's just not being maintained and taken care of. So our Public Works Department obviously takes care of what they're responsible for. I'm just asking, and we're all asking, that the DOT takes care of their jurisdictions. That's all. Thank you very much.
Great. Any comments? Hearing and
Point
seeing.
of information.
Councilor
So I don't know when this happened, Councilor Rizzo, but everything used to be taken care of from the DCR. And what happened, last year it was switched to the DOT. The DOT is not keeping up with anything. It took me a month and a half to have an island cut where the Sunoco station is going into Shirley Ave. 1.5 months. So I think as a council, we should, now that we're going to have a new governor, we should ask the governor if they will switch back to the DCR, because I do think the DCR has the equipment and the MOT, the Mass DOT doesn't. So, I mean, I don't know, but there's a real problem and it looks disgusting. So that's just a point of information.
And through you, Mr. President, to Councilor McKenna, I've called the DOT, and normally I would get responses. This time, I got no response. So, I mean, unfortunately, we had to take this route through the council. But I totally agree. At bare minimum, we should get Roker or the prison crews to go out there and clean it, because it's embarrassing to all of us, people driving through our city, seeing it in the condition it's in.
But Mass DOT gets they're supposed to be doing it, and they get paid to do it, and they're not doing it. So why should we get Roca or someone else to do it while, that's their responsibility. So I really do think that we need to, address the governor with this problem and see if we can, for next year, we can, fix it. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, all in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 25, motion presented by Councilors Cogliandro and McKenna that the mayor request the building department to require all senior housing and subsidized housing buildings to have a backup generator in case of loss of electricity.
Councilor Cogliandro. Councilor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. President. So this was brought to my attention by a friend of mine who has a mother in one of the buildings, a senior house building, and the electricity went out for 5 hours, and she's on oxygen. So she didn't have oxygen. So my friend had to go at 10 o'clock and take her to her house, she had electricity. So I'm just saying, and I wanted Councilor Cogliandro on board because it is his ward, but I'm just asking for all the senior housing to have some sort of generator. We've had 2 power outages in the last month, and these poor people, if they're sick, what do they do if there's no generator? So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I'm
I'm
sorry.
My apologies. Okay, I'm sorry. My fault, but Councilor Cogliandro, would you like to speak? Let
I
him
appreciate
speak
that.
Please, go ahead.
I would
My
say
bad.
exactly what Councilor McKenna said. We just need to help these people, especially ones that require electricity to survive. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies. Councilor Rotundo. I'll blame you for that.
Hey, what are you going to do?
Hey. Go ahead.
You're so pretty.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, that said, this is one of the issues that I think need to be spoken about. One, there needs to be, if not already, an accounting by Revere Housing of those people that have oxygen and special needs. Whenever the electricity goes out, that should be the main issues that these people should be taken care of. The other issue is, and I think it needs to be spoken to the home care company and that person's or every person's healthcare provider, that they should have an auxiliary oxygen tank in place. When I did home care, one of the things that I ensured was that the person had an auxiliary E-tank or whatever size tank was requisite, and usually the insurance companies pick it up. I don't know what it is at this point because I haven't done that type of home care in over 10 years. The other thing is I do think that pretty much every senior facility should have a backup generator. And more importantly, I think the people that have those specific needs should be also provided to the fire department, because it should be utilized as a fail-safe. Obviously, there needs to be HIPAA compliant form signed, but that allows for, a double-blinded safety net for those that need the care appropriately rendered. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, all in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 26, motion presented by Councilor Cogliandro that the mayor and director of Parks and Recreation look into the feasibility of installing shade coverings at public parks and playgrounds so children and families can get out of the sun. This is a common practice in surrounding communities.
Councilor Cogliandro.
Speaks for itself.
Any questions? Any other? All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 27, motion presented by Councilor Cogliandro that the mayor direct the Water and Sewer Department to investigate the flooding on Carlton Street. During the last bad rainstorm, the entire street was flooded and water was coming up from the ground in the yards of residences.
Council Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. President. About a month ago, at a community meeting, a resident from Carlton Street approached me with videos from the last time that there was a really bad rainstorm. And the water, not only was the street flooded, but there was water coming up like a geyser through their backyard. It was quite concerning. So if the DPW and the Water Department wouldn't mind taking a look at that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Council Rizzo?
Mr. President, just to follow up on that, and not that I know, we won't know, I guess, until we talk to engineering, but a lot of times this is happening as we continue the work on our infrastructure, and we continue to fix piping. We can fit, whether it's our sewer lines, whether it's our storm drainage, whatever. As we're fixing these and we're closing up these leaks, the rainwater, groundwater doesn't have anywhere to go anymore. And that's actually what happened at McMacken Park. When we had that big sewer break there and we fixed that line, believe it or not, the broken sewer line used to benefit McMacken Field. But when that was fixed, the water had nowhere else to go. And I think this is what's happening at various locations around the city. So it's great that we're fixing these lines, but one of the byproducts of that that's happening is that a lot of people who never normally got flooding before because they had the benefit of the broken sewer lines or, with a normal rainwater and drainage could go, can no longer go there. So we're going to continue to see this, I think. Now, in terms of Councilor Cogliandro's situation on Carlton Street, I don't know that that's the case, but I'm just saying that is something that we're seeing around the city.
Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Council Rotundo.
Actually, I'm pretty sure if this is the same property, Councilor Cogliandro, that in the back there is actually a catch basin that's in the back there. I know that 24 has had an issue with that too. So I'm wondering if there's some type of issue that's regarding that. So I know that issue is there. It's not too far from the funeral home. So there probably needs to be some inspection beyond just that. I would even include the catch basin behind it on 24.
Okay.
And I know it's been registered with the city.
I'm sure we can get Donnie Cheramella on it, as well as the city engineer as well. So all in favor, all opposed?
So just to give you some updated information, I did contact Charamello earlier today to ask about it, and he referred me to the water and sewer supervisor. They actually went to take a look at it today, and they didn't see any flooding today from that, from the rainstorm that we just currently had. But I don't know if there's an issue or not, but there wasn't nothing today. But I'd still be in favor of having them investigate it.
Okay. All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 28, motion presented by Councilors Cogliandro and Sereno, that the mayor direct the police chief to increase patrols at the intersection of Newhall Street, Cushman Ave, and Sargent Street. Drivers are not stopping at the intersection as directed by the stop signs, creating a public safety hazard for pedestrians.
Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Cogliandro for bringing this up with me as well. There is an issue at that intersection, particularly, so Cushman Ave is Ward 3, but Ward 6 obviously is Newhall Street and Sargent Street. And people are flying up Sargent Street, and where there's the stop sign going toward Cushman Ave, it's one lane, but people like to make it 2 lanes. And when somebody is taking the left onto Newhall Street, people are zooming past on the right and just totally ignoring the stop sign there. So this is a school zone, this is a residential area, people need to drive more appropriately. The speeding is just out of control. I know on Sargent Street, we were able to get 2 speed radar signs that has helped a little bit. But people out there, and I keep echoing this every meeting, people in this city drive like maniacs. And the police, we need to figure out ways as a city to better enforce the speed limit and make sure people are abiding by our traffic safety regulations.
Thank you, Councilor Sereno. Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Sereno, I think we discussed an amendment. We'd like to also add in some modifications to the speed table on Cushman Ave as well. I have emailed the DPW about this, and they're aware of the complaints that have come in about the speed table being too high, not long enough. There's not appropriate lighting. There's not enough signage, and people are actually hurting themselves. And just the other day, we had a fire apparatus get damaged because of it. So if we could amend this to add, to also make modifications to the speed table, that would be, I don't know how you want to word it, Councilor Sereno, but.
Mr. President, if I
Councilor Sereno.
might, I would say, after the last sentence, after pedestrians, Madam, through you to the clerk, I would say additionally that the DPW or appropriate department make modifications to the speed table on Cushman Avenue to allow additional signage, potentially flashing lights, as well as perhaps painting on the ground before the speed hump on both sides that says speed hump ahead. So I would add that modified language, and I would just say, because I know a lot of people in the city have complained about that speed hump, and like I said, modifications obviously need to be made. However, I think it's imperative that that only be the first speed hump in the city, and that we add more throughout our city, because again, the safety of the public, the speeding is just out of control, and we need, if other cities like Melrose, like Everett can have these speed humps, and the fire apparatus can go over them in these other communities, if we modify them correctly, it should not be an issue, and we should have more throughout the city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. You're good. All in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 29, motion presented by Councilor McKenna, that the City Council award a certificate of merit to Matthew DiLorenzo for his heroic efforts to save 6 families on Winthrop Avenue from a burning apartment building on July 23rd. At approximately 3 a.m., Matthew called 911 and ran into the burning structure without regard for his own safety to alert the families of the fire and get everyone out.
Councilor McKenna.
I am going to save my comments for the next meeting, but this kid is a hero. Thank you.
Great. All in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 30, motion presented by Councilor Keefe, that the mayor request the housing liaison and the affordable housing trustees to collaborate with the Revere Housing Authority in planning use of vacant and underutilized land and properties to add more affordable space for Revere's residents. This collaboration could involve a public and private partnership to increase affordability for the city's senior population.
Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't want to touch base on this too much, but ultimately we had a pretty good meeting regarding inclusionary zoning that we took a look at and thought that it needed to come back. Too often when we want to solve crises, we look outside, like someone else is going to solve our problems. That's not going to happen. And more often than not, the people that are trying to solve those problems or saying they're solving those problems have their own special interest involved. Some of these housing advocacies really are just massive housing developers that are raking in lots of cash, and they're just doing it a different way, getting subsidies, getting extra money, claiming to be non-profit, which is not the case. They're all making lots of money. We have our housing, most of our housing property in the city of Revere happens to be the least densely populated areas in our city. If you compared every street that one of us lives on, or most of the audience lives on, their street's probably more densely populated than all of the Revere Housing Authority property, for the most part, without some of the larger buildings. So we should look internally at the space we have and use some of the housing, community housing trust fund, use some other resources that we have to create more housing that's deep affordable. That's not just fake affordable, deep affordable, for the residents of Revere to be able to support the senior population, the population in need, and actually control it in-house. If we have a house or a property that goes up for tax title, that goes up for auction, we should use the funds to procure that property, redevelop it, potentially expand upon it, and then create more of a housing stock within that. That's, to me, how you solve a crisis internally rather than looking at the fake external help. Because it's unbelievable. There's an article written about, how this didn't go through, and they quoted nothing. They took it and quoted exactly what they wanted to. But the fact of the matter is the communities that have inclusionary zoning around us are the most expensive communities to live in. Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, the most expensive communities to live in have had inclusionary zoning for 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, and they want to say that we should follow that lead. I'm sorry, but that's not going to be the case. I think we can make a different statement and try to internalize the housing crisis inside of our city. So ultimately, it would take a lot of work. It would take a lot of thought, and it would take a lot of resources, but I think that if we're going to start to solve an issue, we should look internally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rotundo.
I think we have a great opportunity here. Most importantly, we have an asset that we don't look to and oversee, and it's right for our feet. It's called the DPW, and many of those people that are there know how to use a hammer, know how to lay a form, know how to do things that would be requisite to help and coalesce the ideas of Councilor Keefe, in which I believe it was Director Wells who sent me well over 10 homes that are now taken by tax title that we could be utilizing for the city of Revere, that we could, in many cases, use for micro units for those that are single persons looking for housing, and then for those people that are looking for housing as families. And what you would do is, in particular, 3-family buildings, you would basically turn them into 3 condos, raffle them off among those people who would want to participate in buying an affordable house in the city of Revere, and take that money and reinstitute it within the system to help incorporate buying another 3-family, just like they used to do at the neighborhood of affordable housing in East Boston. Now, there are some groups in Revere, neighborhood developers, who I believe Wynn is involved with quite a bit, and I think perhaps that might be what Councilor Keefe is alluding to. I might be wrong, but what I can tell you is that it's not unusual for the neighborhood developers to appear to be one thing when they are something else. Thank you.
Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I commend Councilor Keefe for this motion. Although early on in COVID, I was on the emergency response team, part of the homelessness unit, and we had several meetings with the RHA and the Revere Housing Authority. And the issue that comes up each time is that there's our money there to develop homes. The money is not there and is not appropriated federally for the upkeep and maintenance of the homes. And that's the big issue that the RHA is running in for expanded development. So I think that's a problem that we would have to look into with them. But I commend the motion, and I agree that we need to take a deep look into fixing the inclusionary zoning ordinance that came before us, and working together with the councilor, the building department, and developers within the city to make a normal push and to get something in the city that can work for everyone. Thank you.
Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hadn't planned on speaking on this, but there's some things I heard. Councilor Rotundo, it's going to be a heck of a collective bargaining session with the DPW, I think. We're going to put hammers in their hands and put them to work. I love it.
Wow.
But, I'm just teasing. I'm supportive of the motion, and I am glad and proud to be part of a city council that stood up just because, we hear so many times, well, this one's doing it, and this city's doing it, and that city's doing it. Well, it doesn't work for us. We were giving away the store in exchange for very little, and everyone in the city council stood up, and so I was very proud to be part of that vote. And it's great that Councilor Keefe is looking for options, because I don't think anyone on the city council is anti-affordable housing. I mean, it would be crazy to say that. We all want to see a place that's affordable, but at what cost? And what cost to residents, who live here and want to stay here? So we can be creative, and I think Councilor Keefe's motion is one step in the right direction that we can coalesce around and hopefully work towards, and still get the same result without injuring residents who live here already. So I'm very supportive of it. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilor Maravito.
I wasn't going to speak, but now I have an appetite to speak. If Councilor Keefe can give me an example of how there would be a public and private partnership, if he can just give me an example of his vision.
Well, I think that as we do look at future parcels, let's take Constitution Ave or Coolidge Street. Now that's public land, federally owned, managed by the city in the state. Okay, well, the city's very involved in it. Okay, so it's managed by the state, the government, right? Federal government and the state, correct? Right. So the state and every leader that we have, Congress, President, they all say that they want to create affordable housing. Well, you have this land. Do something with it. It's not overburdened. There's all this vast land, all of it. It's all 1 and 2 levels. 1 and 2 levels. We're talking about 5 levels on the beach. We're talking about 13 units in an 8,000 square foot lot on Bennington Street. We have 1 and 2 levels in the Revere Housing Authority. Yes, there's some dated issues. Yes, there's some upkeep needs. But if we can use that space, partnered potentially with the private development that's willing to do it, the work at a certain cost to get some sort of a benefit, using public money, our money that comes in through taxes and or through Community Housing Trust Fund, that's what I'm talking about. That's an example. Okay?
So, for instance, because right now Revere Housing Authority acts as a landlord. They do not develop land. So we would get a private developer. We would find a parcel of land or a current building. We would have a developer knock it down. Because you got to keep in mind, any time the Revere Housing, if the state is knocking down an old infrastructure and building a new one, or if they're building new building, right? That's at the end of the day, if you look at your vision and look at inclusionary zoning, there's more of a burden on the taxpayers when you have when the Revere Housing, when a state facility is building, because right now RHA is just a landlord, a tenant.
Understood there, and I don't want to. I know this might go into committee, but just let's just another great example. XXX Broadway goes into tax title. They owe us $500,000. It's maybe a 3-family, right? The city says rather than auction it off, they take it. They call a builder and they say, hey, listen, we want you to make 6 condominiums in here. You're going to build them. We're going to give you your 10% above whatever it may be because you built them for us. Thank you. We're going to pay you to do that. Your construction guys, your people, not maybe, I mean, sure, if we have some qualified people in the DPW too, but maybe a building company. They're going to pay you for doing that. Then we're going to go ahead and sell those units for affordable units to affordably qualified people. And now you have 6 condo ownerships rather than making them live and rent for the rest of their lives, which is a vicious cycle for most because they can hardly crawl out of it. And then there's a win-win. Those are the types of public-private partnerships I'm talking about as well. But
true, but
it
at
takes
the
a
end
lot
of the
of thought.
day,
It
when
does take some
something
money.
goes to tax title, when someone feels to pay their taxes, it has to go to public bid. Okay. So how do you partner with someone?
Let me interrupt
So I
here.
think there's a lot of questions before we okay.
Mr. President, could I?
Okay, until before there's a okay before the city council. Like Councilor Rizzo said, everyone wants affordable housing, but we don't want it at the burden of the taxpayers.
Okay.
Point of information, please.
Okay. Councilor McKenna.
A perfect
Yes.
example of this is East Boston
Yes.
Housing Authority. They had a dilapidated, multi-unit facility. They tore it all down, and it's beautiful. So it can be done.
It is, absolutely. And this is going to go into, obviously, into a subcommittee, and probably economic development is where we're going to do it. But I will give the floor to Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you.
Since he's been waiting.
So, Stephen Street, Avalon Street, Crest Ave, Frank Ave, Arnold, Johnny Road, Kingsman Ave, Billow Street, Bellingham, Victoria, and BFW Parkway are all vacant properties that the city has issue with. To Councilor Morabito's question about where and how, Wonderland Transit-Oriented Development was a public-private development in which the city and the state and the federal government collaborated underneath the administration of Tom Ambrosino, and I believe there were other councils that were there at that time, that took the land that belonged to the city, that belonged to the MBTA, that belonged to the federal government because of the tracks, and more importantly, the other state properties that were there. And there was one holdout, and I believe his name was Mr. Dorico, but that said, they took that property underneath an RFQ and developed it to a private development for what it is today. Now, what you can do in the city of Revere, and I brought this up multiple times, as a private-public partnership, is the utilization of the municipal parking lot, which is 3 acres. You could then put out for RFQ to developers in order to develop that land, in which at that point, the RFQ would have to meet the criteria of the city in order to do it. Then there's a compensatory mechanism within that as into how that breaks down. This has been done throughout the country, not just here in the state of Massachusetts. It's been done in Boston, it's been done in Revere, it's been done in Chelsea, it's been done in pretty much every community in the area. And also, to qualify one other thing, Revere Housing Authority is not just the landlord. They also develop the properties too. They actually develop multiple of their properties on Shirley Avenue, as well as other places within the city, to include Rose Street, as well as over on Constitution Ave. That has been done since my uncle lived on Raymond Road back in the 60s. Additionally, this could all help offset the issues that we have with many of the families within the city of Revere, and to utilize the Department of Public Works with a hammer is not the issue. The issue is to hook up the water and sewer hookups, which normally cost between $10,000 and $20,000. And if we could do that to help offload the developer by adding that, as well as include a TIF, that would help incentivize private people coming here to develop with the city for housing.
Council Silvestri.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you very much. I actually just got a text message from Mr. Peroni, who's the president of the RHA board. He says they are moving quickly to get property together and the financing so that we no longer have to wait on federal or state aid. So he's moving in that direction fastly. So there's some information for us.
And
Can I just say one more thing?
Council Maravito.
And that was your Councilor Rotundo's comparison was, you got to keep in mind, Waterfront Square was part of the economic stimulus, which we got federal funding. We did, and a lot of the funding that when they converted, like Thornton Street, that was funded as well. They got funds for it.
There was no federal stimulus there.
Okay. All right. Well, let me.
I was on the council then. You weren't.
Let me
I know.
interrupt this debate. and put this to rest, obviously. It's going to go into economic development for further discussion. I think it's warranted. I will say, just to make a point and validate Councilor McKenna's point, it has been done in East Boston. I know it quite well. It's been done a couple of times in East Boston. So there is a potential with some vision and partnering with the right people. It can be done in Revere as well, okay? And it just takes vision and collaboration with a developer that is willing to come in here and work with the city. So with that being said, I'm going to put this in, I think it's warrants to be put into subcommittee, and we'll put this into economic development.
Calendar item number 31, motion presented by Councilor McKenna that the mayor request all utility companies to notify the city and residents within the affected neighborhood or street when utility work will be taking place at least 48 hours in advance. As an example, on July 25th, United Civil, a contractor for National Grid, shut down Winthrop Avenue without contacting the ward councilor or the city engineer.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you. So it really speaks for itself, but what happened, I'm just going to give a little note on it, that Nick Rysam, who was the city engineer, didn't even know that this company was coming in, which is National Grid, who outsourced the work, United Civil, and they came in without anybody knowing it. They didn't contact Toretta's Bakery was the one who contacted me and said, they shut down the street. What's going on? I said, I have no idea. I call Nick. Nick doesn't know. So they just did it, and they didn't contact anybody. So I'm just asking, and they did it on Endicott Ave too. They said they were going to do one pole, and they did the whole street. They shut down the street for 1 month. And these people have now 2 poles in front of their house, maybe 3 poles in front of their houses, and they didn't even tell us. So I understand that Dan Cameron is retiring, and a woman has taken his place, Councilor Rizzo, and she's on maternity leave right now, but she's coming back within the next week. And we're supposed to get to know her. But we've had problems with National Grid forever. I've been sitting on this council for 7 years, and all we do is there's no communication. There's no communication. They just come in and they just do a lousy job. I'm sorry. So I'm just asking for transparency. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 32, motion presented by Councilor McKenna that the mayor request all utility companies and the city of Revere to include tree pits and trees when installing new sidewalks.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think everybody in the city knows that I'm a tree person, but again, it wasn't National Grid, I'm sorry, it was an outside contractor. They reinstalled sewer lines down on Jones Road, George Ave, Henry Street, Dolphin Ave, didn't put 1 tree. I think there's 4 trees down there, I'm sorry. But the thing is that Revere is becoming a concrete city. And because we're urban, we're deprived of trees. If you go into a suburban area, there are trees all over the place. But because we're urban, we're deprived of trees. And we really do need the trees because of the pollution with the airport, the pollution with the trucks, with whatever. So I'm asking for anybody, whether it's the city or a company, that comes in and installs a new sidewalk to put a tree pit and a tree there. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Hearing and seeing none. Oh, Councilor Serena.
Thank you, Mr. President. I commend Councilor McKenna. I didn't think we would get through a meeting without Councilor McKenna bringing up the importance of having trees in our community. However, in Ward 6, too, we have residents who continually ask to see more trees placed on our streets, and I think this would be a great way to help increase that and get more trees in our community. Thank you.
All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 33, motion presented by Councilor Keefe that the mayor request the police department, through public safety grant funding, Install cameras at the corner of McLeavy Street and Park Ave. Illegal dumping and illicit activity has become prevalent in this secluded area.
Council Keefe.
It speaks for itself. It's just been an ongoing issue that we need some more oversight on. Thank you.
All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 34, motion presented by Councilor Powers, that the City Council send a letter to Mass DEP in opposition to Wind Waste Innovations' proposal to expand the ash landfill in Saugus.
Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we did a similar letter a couple of years back, and what I'm asking the council to do is, reassert that concern for the ash pits down there over in Saugus, and let them know that we are 100% against any additional ashes being dumped there.
Any other? Council Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not to rehash the past, I think a lot of residents in the city know where we've stood on Wheelabrator, which is now called Wind Waste, which at one point was Resco. I believe the city knows where we as a council stand, but just kind of update the members of our city council where we are. The town of Saugus is considering a host community agreement of some sort with Wind Waste, and the town is about to ratify an agreement whereby I believe they got something to the effect of either between 5 and 15 million. I forget the exact number of millions. How it's 15 million? Is that so that the town of Saugus is getting millions of dollars, regardless of if it's 5 or 15. They're getting millions of dollars to allow Wind Waste, which was Wheelabrator, to continue to use that ash landfill that was supposed to close. So if this is approved in the town of Saugus, it would extend the life of that landfill another 25 years. Our state reps, Rep. Turco, Rep. Janino, Senator Edwards have been spearheading the effort in opposition. However, it's in the town of Saugus's hands, and I think we've stood together as neighbors on some issues with the town of Saugus, and I think this might be a case where we disagree, but that we as neighbors would urge them to not move forward with this. Thank you, Mr. President.
All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 35, motion presented by Councilors Rizzo and McKenna, that the mayor request the police department to relocate the existing speed sign at the intersection of Crescent Avenue and Webster Street to the intersection of Crescent Avenue and Orchard Ave, facing traffic heading east. The new location will slow the traffic heading easterly up Crescent Avenue from Winthrop Avenue. Further, that the chief of police be requested to deploy speed traps around the city in hopes of slowing down traffic. Further, that the police department install an electronic speed reader facing east on Crescent Avenue.
Council McKenna. That's your award.
Thank you. I believe that some councilors got an email from a resident of mine. This has been a hot topic for the last, since I was a councilor. What's happened is the houses are right on the street and right on the corner, and people on living in these houses do not want stop signs. They just don't want it because the quality of life, it ruins their quality of life. So when Councilor Penta was a councilor, he put 4 stop signs on the corners of these streets. And what happened was people went up there that lived there and went up to the traffic commission and said, look, we can't sleep. Our windows are open in the summer, the cars are blaring their music, we can't sleep. So the traffic commission took the stop signs off. It's been a hot topic, especially with one person on the street, that they want to put the stop signs back on. I don't think that's the solution. I've talked to the residents that are still living there for umpteen years. They don't want the stop signs because it's going to ruin their quality of life. If their house was in the back and there was a yard, and it would be a different story. But their house is right on the streets, right on the sidewalk. So Counselor Rizzo reached out to me because he got the same email from this resident of mine. So we were thinking, first of all, we think that the police should do more speed traps, especially everybody on this council is complaining about speeding. And what's going on? And I understand the mentality of people getting stopped is not good. I mean, years ago, you would stop someone if they were speeding, they'd say, yes, officer, no, officer. Now they just pull out a gun, you know? So I'm sure that the police are hesitant to do this, but it really needs to be done around the city. So Councilor Rizzo and I want him to talk too, but we were thinking about putting speed signs on both sides of the streets, one coming up from Winthrop Ave and then one coming up from Short Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna. Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you very much, Councilor McKenna. I know you've been working hard on this issue, along with many others, as all the ward councilors are. I mean, you know, we heard Councilor Sereno earlier talking about the need for, you know, enforcement down in his area. I see it as well. He is my ward councilor, and so I know people in our area are always complaining about speeders, but no matter where you go, you're going to hear people say they don't like speeding vehicles. None of us here in the city council like speeding vehicles. We're trying to do what we can to handle it. I mean, we've got, I think last year, the year before, in the 2000, or the last census that, you know, that was done, we're the largest, fastest growing community in the Commonwealth. So obviously that's going to bring more vehicles with it, whether we like it or not. More cars are here. You look at the number of police officers, those numbers virtually haven't changed. And when you look at the people who are out for one reason or another, we certainly don't have enough police officers to just deal with the volume of calls they're getting, the different types of crimes that are being committed, and now to have to throw traffic enforcement in that is really a big problem. I mean, we all wish we could wave a magic wand and say, we're going to get all speeders, we're going to get all, people who take wrong turns, like on Broadway. I travel Broadway all the time. You're not supposed to take, a turn onto Winthrop Ave from Broadway, or onto Broadway, depending upon the direction. It's constantly violated. Never see anything done about it. But you really can't blame the police because they've got their hands full and they're dealing with the best way they can. So hopefully this will be one thing that we can do to slow down the traffic without hurting the people who live in that area. It's a very sensitive issue for Councilor McKenna because she's trying to make the residents that want the stop signs, obviously she wants to keep her residents safe, and we all do. But if there's a problem with the people who live there, let's try and come up with maybe an alternative that can help slow the traffic down and maybe make it a little safer. So that's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you for the latitude.
No worries. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Silvestri.
Yes, Mr. President, and I agree with the motion wholeheartedly. This was an issue during the election. Several residents have brought it up to me, and I spoke with Councilor McKenna at the beginning of this year on this same resident who sent an email. So anything that can be done to make that street safer. It is a hazardous street. If you stand on that street and wait, the cars fly up and down it all day long. So anything that can be done to slow the traffic down is much needed for the residents in that neighborhood. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. All in favor, all opposed, so ordered.
Calendar item number 36, motion presented by Councilor Morbido that the City Council award certificates of commendation to Deputy Tom Tedisco, Captain Tom Prezio, Lieutenant Jack Kerry, and firefighters Joe Janino and Lawrence Floyd in recognition of their retirements from the City of Revere Fire Department.
Councilor Morbido.
I'll save my comments for the night of the presentation.
Sure. All in favor? Oh, Councilor Rizzo.
Just because I can't speak during the presentation, I want to congratulate all those firefighters. I think it's an excellent motion, recognizing these firefighters, and it's something I think that we should do going forward. I don't think we do enough of it. We have longtime public servants that spend literally their whole careers here, and not all of them get the benefit of getting recognized. So I think this maybe should be something we should look at going forward. I'm glad you put the motion in. Thank you.
All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 37, motion presented by Councilor Powers, that the mayor request the city solicitor and the city's general counsel to appear before the city council to discuss the following relative to, that should read 585, not 685 North Shore Road. 1, what is the status of the property? 2, the amount of fines owed to the city of Revere. 3, the amount of unpaid taxes, if any, owed to the city. And 4, when can the city anticipate obtaining ownership of the property due to the ongoing dangerous condition of the structure?
Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Approximately 3 to 4 years ago, I had a meeting with a local attorney in his office, and we had a fellow come in that owned that property, and he was very reluctant to do anything because just didn't care, had no value for what the residents down here look at every day. So finally, his attorney, who was also present at the meeting, convinced him he'd have to do something. Well, since then, nothing has been done down there. The city solicitor, our city solicitor, went to court. I was told that we had possession of the property. Then I was told that the fellow filed federal bankruptcy that owned the property. Now we don't have it. What I'd like to happen here is that our city solicitor or our outside counsel, whoever is handling that, or maybe both, come before the city council and explain, number one, who owns the property, and if we do own the property, in spite of the federal bankruptcy, how long is it going to take to gain possession of that property? Number two, how many fines have we levied? An awful lot, hundreds of thousands of dollars, I believe, on this property. And also, is there any arrearage on real estate taxes? It's an eyesore. I have pictures which I will bring to the meeting. This is one of them here, what the building looks like now. That's the back of the building. It's in danger of falling into the Pines River. Okay, if in fact that does happen, you're going to have pieces of wood down there floating around in the river.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
Councilor?
And the other thing, and this is very important, that 2 years ago, there were some kids or adults, I'm not sure which, went in there, broke in, stripped the copper on the oil tanks in there, and it was so bad we had DEP units circling the area where the spill was, and it cost an awful lot of money to correct that. So let's get the people in here, let's get it, and let's get it done.
I couldn't agree more. Any other comments? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 38, motion presented by Councilor Powers, that the mayor request MassDOT to install electronic speed readers on North Shore Road between John Ave and Oak Island Street, and Revere Street in the interest of public safety.
Council Powers?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, we're talking about speeding through the city. And I agree 100% with the previous motions by, I believe, Councilors McKenna and Rizzo. I believe 100%. We don't have enough of them in the city. However, 1A, North Shore Road, is probably the most heavily impacted area in the city, not only with traffic, but also with speeding, cars flying through there. You come out of the Dunkin' Donuts down there, and you have to wait for the light to change on Mills Ave before you can pull out. Either that or you're taking your life in your hands. So what I've asked for is 4 of these machines that they operate on solar, as far as the electricity is concerned. They indicate the speed that's allowed there and also the speed you're doing now. Does it stop people? Probably not. But it makes some people aware of the speed they're going, and they slow down and worry about getting to the next area and not getting mushroomed by another car. Thank you, Mr. President.
All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 39, motion presented by Councilor Cogliandro, that the mayor request the DPW to direct all companies working in the city of Revere to clean up their work sites in a timely manner.
Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. President. it just seems like they're doing work one day, and then 3 or 4 days later, they're coming back to continue or finish that work. And in the meantime, it would be real nice if they could clean up their work area. Just the other night, what actually sent me over the edge to file this motion, they were removing dirt piles at 8:30 p.m. on Rumney Road with heavy machinery. So I don't want any more of those A-frames there, the cones that are out, the dirt piles in front of people's homes. They need to do a better job of cleaning it up. If they're coming there to work the very next day, I can understand them leaving whatever they need there. But when it's a few days in between, they need to do a much better job of cleaning their work areas. Thank you.
All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 40, motion presented by Councilors Keefe and Silvestri, that the mayor be requested to name the new home team dugout to be constructed at the RHS baseball field in honor of longtime career educator at RHS, varsity RHS baseball coach, and an inductee of the Massachusetts Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame, Mr. Al Blasi.
Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did put this in conjunction with Council Silvestri, who is very much in favor, and he's been working with the family regarding, Mr. Blasi, who I didn't have the honor of being coached by, but half of Revere did, and either that or he was an educator as well, has left a lasting impact. But finding out that we're going to be building some dugouts, some official dugouts at the high school field, I thought it'd be very fitting to name the home dugout in honor of Mr. Blasi, but also recognize his accomplishments, not just as a Revere educator, a mentor, a coach, but also he was a military man, and he has a long history and decorated history as well. So those comments will come forward when we do have something more formal, when this is constructed, but I can't think of a better way to recognize what he's done for the community. Thank you.
Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Keefe and I discussed this. I've been in contact with the family, and Mr. Blasi is a legend in the city of Revere, and several of us have been the honor to be taught by him, and several coached. And the family wanted to do a memorial sign for his veteran service, and I thought it would be sufficient that we do something more, considering the years of service he's put into the youth of our city. And Councilor Keefe agreed, and I think this is a great motion. Thanks.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had the pleasure of working with Al, and just what I saw through the years, he touched thousands and thousands of kids. So this is a great honor. I am so happy this happened, and I commend both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can just comment on this, and let's not forget, if I'm correct, I think it's being built by the students of Northeast Voc that is partnering with Revere to do this, and a big shout out goes to the school committeeman Anthony Caggiano for working this through as well. So I want to give them notice and the good work that we look forward to having them. Hopefully they will continue that, and we can partner up with them as well for other future projects. So that being said, all in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 41, motion presented by Councilor Keefe, that the City Council award a certificate of commendation to Derek's Barbershop, Derek Animadoris, and Jenna Serino in recognition of providing free back-to-school haircuts to 30 students.
Councilor Keefe.
Thank you. This is fresh. This just happened this morning, and I know that no one here did this for the accolades, but ultimately it was a great idea by Derek and Jenna to do this. I know that it was really well received. The school department sent a bunch of kids down that really appreciate it. So just kudos. I know we'll do something more formal here as well, but very proud of our Revere businesses that are willing to give back to our population. Thank you.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a shout out to Derek. He was one of my favorite students, and I just have to say that I'm very proud of him. Thank you.
All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
One late motion from Councilor Rizzo, that the City Council review the city's current hiring guidelines for chiefs of police, along with a review of the assessment center results that was completed in 2017. Further, that the mayor appear before the City Council to discuss his knowledge of prior and/or current allegations of misconduct against the current chief of police and what actions and/or financial settlements have been made on behalf of the city as a result of these allegations. Additionally, to provide an accounting of all financial settlements and explanations why they were made with officers of the department, past and present, since 2017. Also, that a list of any and all disciplinary actions taken against members of the Revere Police Department, including terminations and suspensions and reasons for them.
Council Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Obviously, you know, the tone of the motion is looking for answers. I think it's something that members of the City Council don't have. At least I know I don't have. We now have two chiefs. The last one with charges pending right now for misconduct, and now with this latest WBUR article, public radio, that was put out on August 11th, we have more allegations, more settlements and payments, and people that are on paid leave, officers that have been terminated, some for much less than what, if these allegations are true, is a real injustice. We've got, you know, we have to understand what's going on within this police department. And if those of you here who haven't read or seen the article that is now public, it's troubling to me, first of all, that these things have to come public. The last chief, we had to say, I noticed it on television, Channel 5. This here has to come out in an article in public radio. We are elected officials and responsible to the taxpayers of this community. We're making settlements of hundreds of thousands of dollars without knowing that it's even happening. This is outrageous to me. This is outrageous, and, you know, I for one, want to get some answers to this. We should not have to be reading about what's going on in our own police department in order to get informed of things that are happening. I mean, I was informed, and of course, we spent money, tax dollars, on an assessment center that none of us received copies of. And now we're finding out that people that were part of that assessment center were not recommended to be chief, and that the mayor himself was up here wanting to go outside the department. I mean, that's outrageous that we have nobody within the department who's qualified to be chief. I find that very unusual. I think we have a lot of highly qualified officers and members of the department who work their way up and aspire to be chief, and if they have the right qualifications, can be chief. This is not, I'm mentioning this, and it's not for any reason, but Chief Caffarelli served here as chief for 5 years, really his whole career, was let go. I don't know why. He actually has a court case against the city right now that hasn't been settled yet because of the way he was treated on the way out. And here's a guy who did absolutely nothing wrong. No blemishes on his record. The only thing he was guilty of is being too tough, for militarizing the police department, is what it said in the article. I guess because he got some Humvees that were used in, you know, storms and things like that the city paid nothing for. But right now, we have a situation going on in the police department that is troubling to me. We have an officer right now, and I'm sure many of you know, that was terminated because he was in his probationary period because he had an off-duty car accident. No OUI, no personal injury, nothing. But he's terminated. And yet, we read an article like this, and if you haven't read it, I would highly encourage members of this council to read it. It is disturbing. It's very, very disturbing. And we've got a number of officers that have signed non-disclosure agreements, getting big settlements, tax dollars, getting paid out. And, you know, we can't continue down this road. We should be looking for we should be encouraging people to to go into law enforcement and want to make something of themselves without fear of walking on eggshells and fitting with the right person or not with the right person. This is not a good situation. So this motion is just asking for the information. This isn't a witch hunt. This isn't something that I'm creating in my mind here. I know we all wish it would go away, but the fact is, members of the public are now involved in this. This is not us. Members of the public are bringing this to light, and I think if we don't do something about it, then I believe we're not doing our job, Mr. President. So, again, if you read the motion, it's looking for information, and I'm hoping and confident, somewhat confident, that it'll be supported. Thank you.
Councilor Rotundo.
So for the past 6 months, I've been receiving phone call after phone call after phone call to bring this to light, to attack, to do things that are untoward to this community. And my thought is this needs to be brought into executive session, needs to be spoken about appropriately. We have to balance the issues of privacy versus the due diligence of government. What troubles me the most is that I had former Chief Ryan in front of me, as well as, I believe, the mayor and several other people, when I asked for the questions that we paid for in the assessment. And then prior to that, former Mayor Ryan from Arlington stated to me that, of course, he would be able to do that. And then I was told it was proprietary, that thereafter I could not get those questions. Now I see on this article from WBUR, one of the questions is actually provided to the news organization. So therefore, it leads me to believe that it was not proprietary. And I want to know why in the hell we did not get the questions that we asked for, that we spent a significant amount of money for. And more importantly, as we are the ones that sign off on the budget and also pay for any type of settlement, or for that matter, attorneys or outside attorneys, we are the gatekeepers for the community in the sense of the economic situation that sits before us. Did we settle for $500,000? I know one case we settled for a lot of money with a female officer. I know that we also have another officer of a certain background who had an issue with, I believe, another employee in the department, and he was terminated. So I'd like to know exactly what transpired, what happened, who got what, how. I'd like to get the questions that were provided for the assessment, because it's clear now that they are not proprietary, or for that matter, that were given to BUR due to litigation of some sort or some type of legal maneuvering. But whatever it was, they were given the question of how they were given a written, basically a take-home question in order to answer. And it goes into the question that was given through BUR. But I was stonewalled for a complete hour and a half that I could not get the question. So I'd like to get the question. I'd like to get the answers. It needs to be done in executive session, and I think it's a fair question. Thank you.
Any questions? Any other further comments? I agree that it has to, with pending litigation, I think it's only proper that if discussions and information wants to be had, that, and rightfully so, I do believe that this should be done in executive session. So with that being said, if there's no objection for that, I think we as the city council body deserve those answers and should rightfully know what's going on. So, but it should be done in executive session. So if there's no objection to that and adding that, Council Rizzo, I would agree to that.
Yeah, Mr. President, I mean, you know, if the council feels it should be held in executive session, I mean, I'll go along with it. There are no charges that I'm aware of right now with respect to to the current chief. The former chief, yes, there are, you know, that is a civil matter, is being handled in court. But this one isn't. I mean, the hiring process is a public process, but if everyone would prefer to go in executive session and talk about these things, but the bottom line is, it needs to be talked about. We just can't continue to kick this under the rug. You know, we need to know when we appoint a chief, we can't politicize public safety. Public safety is paramount, as we all know. I'm not lecturing you guys. You guys know this. But like, you know, it can't, I mean, you know, we can't continue going down a road like this. We need to get answers, and if that's gonna happen, Mr. President, in executive session, so be it.
Okay. If there's no objection, all in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Mr. President, can we suspend rules?
Yes.
I'd like to suspend rules in order to take up the last motion in order that it prevails. What am I trying to say?
Oh, okay. A suspension of rules? We're under the suspension of rules, so in the hopes that it does not prevail.
Thank you, reconsideration. I'm a little fatigued working
Okay,
nights.
that's all. It's been a long day. And I believe this concludes the August 22nd City Council meeting. Next meeting is on September 12th. Thank you.